Chapter 580. Touching the ice-cold skin, and the almost disappeared pulse under the skin, makes her heart sink a little. This isn't a fatal injury that can be saved by a life-saving draft. Rather, the vitality in his body is already close to nothing. It's like a person's birth, old age, sickness, and death. It's almost irreversible. Yen. Shen Jinglin looks at Mu Yan's face, his voice trembling a little. Will he die? Even you can't save him. No. I will save him. Mu Yan resolutely replies, but there's not enough time. I won't be able to rush back to Hellfire Valley to save him. You guys. She looks at the people of the Ink camp who came out with her to kill the enemy. You guys, gather everyone in Hellfire Valley to protect me. Before I finish saving him, don't let anyone come within a radius of 5 miles. Remember, within a radius of 5 miles. Yes, miss. The people of the Ink camp quickly take the order and retreat, forming a huge encirclement to protect Mu Yan and Bai Chen. Seeing that the surrounding people have disappeared, Mu Yan enters the space without hesitation, takes out the Tian Emo Qin, and gives it a heavy knock. Qi Huang, come out. After a moment, a lazy voice is heard. Impudent, do you think this sage is someone that you can call at will? The phantom of a stunningly beautiful youth appears in front of her, glaring at Mu Yan with an unkind expression. Mu Yan is completely in no mood to pay attention to him. I remember that among the third-level Shin musician skills, there's a skill called Saint of Benevolence, which can transfer one's vitality to others. Isn't that right? Hearing that, Qi Huang frowned slightly. You want to use the Saint of Benevolence skill? You should know that this skill is one of the most powerful auxiliary skills of the Shin musicians. Even if you've really reached the 3rd level, using it will still be risky, not to mention if you want to use it beyond your level. Don't talk nonsense, just tell me, can you let me use it beyond my level? Mu Yan's expression is indescribably calm. As for the price, I will bear it myself. From the moment I became a doctor, I was prepared to give up some things to save patients. What's more, Bai Chen became like this because of her brother. How could she watch him die and not save him? Qi Huang looked deeply at her for a while, his expression a little dazed. After a while, he said, "All right, I promise you." With that, Qi Huang waved his hand and a ray of light entered Mu Yan's body. 7 brilliance, on the other hand, seemed to have consumed too much energy and instantly dissipated. Mayan felt something flash in her mind, and then it suddenly filled up all of her thoughts. Everything about Saint's benevolence was clearly reflected in her mind, as if it had been engraved into her soul. Without a moment's delay, Mu Yan quickly leaves the space, takes out the Tian Emo Qin, and gently plucks the strings. With the sound of the zither, countless specks of light appeared like fireflies. Little by little, they were sent into Bai Chen's body. Most of the light spots floated out of her body and entered Bai Chen's body. The sound of the zither continues for half an hour, and Mayan's complexion becomes paler and paler. Cough, cough, cough. Bai Chen coughed a few times and opened his eyes. His pale face actually had a tinge of redness. Chapter 581. Then, his eyes fall on Mayan's face, and his expression becomes peaceful and grateful for a moment. Mayan, you saved me again. Mayan gently shakes her head, looking at his unscathed appearance. Her pale face shows a weak smile. You're wrong, it should be me. Thank you, for helping me again. Why is your face so bad? Bai Chen's face suddenly changes. Is it because you saved me? Mayan waves her hand. I'm fine, I just overused my internal force. I'll be fine after a rest. Bai Chen is about to ask again when Shen Jinglin and the others discover that the sound of the zither has stopped. They rush over like lightning. Seeing Bai Chen standing well, Shen Jinglin's tears almost come out again. Brother Bai, you're still alive, you really came back to life. Yen Yen, you really saved him. Yen Yen. Before Shen Jinglin can finish his words, he sees his sister's body sway not far away. She can no longer support herself, and softly falls down. Mayan feels like she's walking in a white mist, everything in front of her seems to be covered with a layer of gauze, and she can't see clearly. Suddenly, not far from her, a zither appears. The sound of the zither emits a sparkling light, and there are a lot of light spots above the zither. Some of the light spots are as bright as stars, and some are so dim that they're almost invisible. Mayan is wondering what these light spots are, when suddenly, she hears a soft and melodious female voice. June Mayan, you are very good. You're willing to give up your own vitality, and take the risk of using a skill that's beyond your level to save a person who has no relatives or friends. You already have the most precious skill of a doctor, divine hands of benevolence. Mayan suddenly turns around and looks around. Who's talking? However, the voice doesn't seem to hear her question at all, and continues to speak. Originally, the Shin musician's third-level skill can only be activated after reaching the realm of Inedia. But your divine hands of benevolence has triggered the opportunity one left in the Tian Mo Chin, so I will make an exception and unseal the Shin musician's third-level skill in advance. I hope that one day, you can avenge the Shin musicians, and also pass on the Shin musicians' wish to save the world and the people to everyone in the three realms. Let them know that the Shin musicians are not demons, but the saviors of heaven and earth. Mu Yan's pupils suddenly widen, unlocking the god musician's third-level skill in advance. You, who exactly are you? However, before she could finish her sentence, everything in front of her disappeared without a trace. She hears Shen Jinglin's anxious voice, Yen Yen, how are you? Mayan opens her eyes and sees Shen Jinglin, Bai Chen, and everyone else who are so anxious that they're about to cry. She was in a daze for a moment, then revealed a slight smile. Don't worry, I'm fine. I'm just exhausted. Not only was she fine, but she had also profited from her misfortune. Using the saint's benevolence, above her level will unexpectedly trigger a lucky chance, allowing her to unlock all the skills of a level 3 Shin musician in advance. Moreover, the vitality that she had lost had all returned just now. Mu Yan only takes a cursory look at the skills of a third-level Shin musician and is shocked by its power. This time, no matter who schemed against her and hurt her loved ones, she would make them pay a painful price. Chapter 582. After not seeing him for a while, Shen Jinglin's appearance is so thin and haggard that he almost doesn't look like a human. Mayan's nose feels sour, but she doesn't have time to reminisce about the past. Instead, she lowers her voice. Brother, tell me, what happened? What about father? And how are the other people in Junji Medical Center now? Shen Jinglin and Bai Chen quickly repeat what they heard from Gong Qinxue. When Gong Qinxue is mentioned, Shen Jinglin's expression is like he wants to devour her flesh. Yen, I never thought that when I took you to see Dr. Qian that year, I would actually plant such a seed of disaster for you. Gong Qinxue, she's simply not human. If she's human, how could she be that vicious and perverted? She actually wants to dig out a living fetus, refine it into an elixir and eat it. When he thinks that his younger sister actually suffered such a cruel persecution from this woman that she almost lost her child, Shen Jinglin goes mad with hatred. Ru Yan also frowns and says, Miss, now it seems that Master, Qing Feng, and Dr. Song should have fallen into Gong Qinxue's hands. Moreover, according to my investigation, Gong Qinxue's influence in Jingqing country is very large. Just the number of heaven stage and above practitioners under her command is innumerable. What should we do? Han Ye's face is calm, sneering, Miss June, it would be better for me to directly go over and twist off that woman's head for you and the young master to play with as a ball. It's only now that Han Yi knows that the process of Mayan's pregnancy actually had such a soul-stirring and dangerous experience. When he thinks that the person that they, Jun Shang, hold at the apex of his heart, was actually schemed and murdered like this, Han Yi can't control the surging murderous intent within him. Not to mention that their little master is so adorable. This vicious and perverted woman actually wants to eat their little master. However, Mayan shakes her head. I know that you can't make too many movements in the Yanwu continent, and even more so, you can't use your own strength. Otherwise, the backlash from the rules of heaven and earth will consign you to eternal damnation. But Jun Shang has this subordinate stay here to protect, don't worry. I just happen to have something that I need you to do. Mayan says a few words in a low voice, a faint smile hanging on the corner of her mouth. On her pale face, this kind of smile seemed bright and holy, but it also made people feel cold for no reason. After instructing Han Yi, she looks at Yan Haotian, Ru Yan, and the others. I know that Gong Chinchua's forces in Jingqing country are very powerful. Then, do you guys have the guts to follow me to uproot all of Gong Chinchua's forces in Jingqing country? Yan Haotian and Ru Yan were stunned at first, then their eyes lit up. And the several backbones of the Ink camp and the heavenly secret unit behind the two of them are so excited that each and every one of their faces are flushed. Miss, do we really have to go against Jingqing country's most powerful princess? What? You don't dare. No. I just feel that it's too fucking exciting, too exciting. This group of shameless things, they actually dared to sneak attack our brothers in Tianyuan City, and even captured Chief Changyu. They dared to provoke our Ink camp, they're simply tired of living. That's right. If we can turn the entire Jingqing country upside down, wouldn't our Nether Flame army be famous all over the world? I think it should be infamous, right? Haha, isn't it good to be infamous? This is in line with the nature of our Ink camp. Let's go kick the soft eggs of those turtle grandsons. That's right, kick the soft eggs of those rolling grandsons. Wherever the Nether Flame army goes, they are invincible and invincible. The Nether Flame army is invincible and invincible. Chapter 583. Ru Yan respectfully kneels down. The Heaven's Secret Battalion is willing to listen to Mrs. orders. Feng Haitang and Old Tao also knelt down. The Everlasting Battalion is willing to listen to Mrs. orders. After settling in the Netherworld Flame Valley, the Ink Camp and the Tianji Camp were merged into the Netherworld Flame Army, and a special camp was set up to focus on alchemy, doctors, and support. This is the Longevity Camp, headed by Feng Haitang, who is currently studying medicine with Mayan, and assisted by Old Tao and Chen Qingfeng. Bai Chen took a deep breath. She put her right hand on her left chest and slowly knelt down. The Great Void Battalion is at your disposal, Mississippi. At this moment, the invincible Nether Flame army that would sweep across the three realms in the future and strike fear into the hearts of everyone had formed its first embryonic form. As for the people of the Yanwu, Shuzhen, and Shuxian realms, at this very moment, they still don't know what kind of earth-shattering change this frightening army will bring to them. Mu Yan looked at the people kneeling on the ground, and an uncontrollable warmth surged in her heart. Originally, when she established the Ink camp, she just wanted to use them for revenge. It only took them 5 years. Once Gong Chinchua is eliminated and her great enmity is avenged, she plans to disband the Ink camp. However, it would appear that she was unable to abandon these people, nor was she willing to part with them. Because unknowingly, these people had already become her relatives, her family. That's right, it's family. Mu Yan takes a deep breath. I'll give you 2 hours. After 2 hours, head to Lotus City. Yes, miss. The crowd retreated like the tide. Shen Jinglin looked at his little sister, who was close at hand. His heart was proud and distressed. He was proud of the soft and cuddly little girl who used to follow him around, but she had already grown up to be like this. The dazzling radiance was so dazzling that no one could conceal it. His heart ached because his sister had to go through so much hardship and suffering to grow up to this point. Mayan turns around and sees Shen Jinglin's distressed expression. Thinking that he's worried, she couldn't help but faintly smile. Rest assured, Father and the people of Junji Medical Center will be fine. Dr. Song and the others will also be fine. Because I will not allow anything to happen to them. Shen Jinglin repeatedly nodded and said, Yen Yen, Big Brother believes in you. Big Brother also believes that Gong Qinshue, that vicious beast, will not have a good ending. Hearing this, the arc at the corner of Mu Yan's mouth deepened, but the light in his eyes seemed to have condensed into 10,000-year-old ice. Qianqing, Gong Qinshue, I originally planned to give them a little more time to struggle at death's door, but they don't seem to appreciate it. Since that's the case, I'll let them know the consequences of touching the people around me. June Mayan. Jingqing Country, Lotus City. The usually bustling town was now like a ghost town, and the air was filled with the stench of decay. Indistinctly, there were stifled cries of despair. If someone were to enter this city, they would be shocked to discover something. In this Lotus City, the most luxurious street was the boundary, and it was divided into two parts. In the east, the citizens of Lotus City were hiding from the shivering citizens. Every single one of them was sallow and emaciated, and they looked terrified and despairing. As for the western side, it was completely empty. There were only a few thousand people standing on the huge square. No, perhaps these thousands of people could not be called people. Because they did not have the slightest vitality of a living person. His eyes were lifeless, and his skin had already begun to rot. Chapter 584. Those aren't living people, but corpse soldiers, cultivated by goo worms. It's just that compared to Gong Qinshue's corpse soldier team, although there are many of them, they're very weak. Spare me. Doctor, I don't want to become like that, I beg you, let me go. On the street between the east and west, a wretched-looking man is sitting on an armchair. Behind him are dozens of black-clothed men with profound cultivation. This person is Qian Qing's medicine boy and confidant, Qian Ping. Hearing the cries of the common people on the east side, he cracks open his mouth, revealing dark yellow teeth and an eerie smile. These will be Princess Qinshue's most powerful corpse soldiers in the future. How can you say that they're neither human nor ghost? To be able to become the princess's subordinates, to help the princess conquer the world, you should feel honored. Suddenly, Qian Ping's voice pauses, his left cheek twitches, and he darkly says, "Oh, that's right, I almost forgot, what about the group of doctors we brought back from Tianyuan City? It's time to raise more mother goo." Very soon, several dust-faced, battered and exhausted old men are brought over. Among them, there are quite a few doctors in charge of the Junji Medical Center. The black-clothed men escorting them rudely push them to the ground. Dr. Yu's forehead knocks against the rock, blood immediately flowing. He shakily lifts his head and looks at Qian Ping. "You, who are you people? What do you want to do?" Qian Ping sneers, "What I want to do, you'll soon know." Saying that, he waves his hand. The black-clothed men immediately each take a brocade box and walk over to the doctors. Arriving in front of the doctors, the brocade box is opened, revealing an ugly bug about the size of a fingernail inside. "You, what do you want to do?" Dr. Yu cries out, but he's pinched by the chin. The black-clothed men expressionlessly stuff the bug into his mouth. "Ugh, let me go, ugh ugh." As soon as his chin is released, Dr. Yu desperately wants to vomit out the bug. But the worm seemed to have a mind of its own. As soon as it entered his mouth, once it enters his mouth, it immediately bites through his flesh and burrows inside. Qian Ping watched with satisfaction as all the doctors ate the mother parasite. Then, he smiled and said, "Okay, now, let them start preparing for treatment." His gaze swept across the doctors who were trembling in fear. As they wailed and begged for mercy, his laughter became more and more carefree. "Do you know? The mother goo of the golden silkworm goo could only be fed by the mildest doctor's chi during treatment and refining. But fortunately, we don't lack patience here. Doctors, do your best to treat the patients and raise our mother goo." Ha ha ha. Qian Ping waved his hand. Immediately, a black-clothed man walked to the east side of Lotus City's citizens. His hand rose and the knife fell. In the blink of an eye, nearly 100 civilians were lying in pools of blood. Their limbs were either broken, or their bones were broken. Some even had their stomachs cut open and half of their internal organs dug out. Every single one of them walked up to Dr. Yu and the others, barely breathing. "What are you waiting for?" Qian Ping smiled faintly. "The patient is right in front of you. Don't you plan to treat him?" However, these doctors were only ordinary doctors. Seeing such a scene, they had long since been scared out of their wits. All of their faces were filled with shock, and they couldn't even budge. Chapter 585. As soon as Qian Ping's voice falls, the black-clothed people surrounding the doctors unsheath their swords one by one, looking terrifying. The doctors are so scared that their souls almost fly away. They scramble over to the patient's side and begin to operate their internal force to treat him. However, as they treat him, a terrible scene happens. The doctors' bellies become bigger and bigger. And their flesh and blood seem to be being devoured, their bodies becoming thinner and thinner. Especially those doctors with low levels, right now they're all skin and bones. Their eyes are completely sunken, and their grizzled hair falls down in clumps. They look like they're already a dried corpse. Suddenly, that person falls down, his body twitching violently. And from inside his body, there's a mumbling sound, as if it's a refusal. Immediately after, his stomach split open, and a black worm crawled out of it. Immediately, the black-clothed people step forward and collect the worm that crawls out. Qian Ping looks at the doctor who's already breathed his last in disgust, and sneers, "Can't even hold on for a quarter of an hour, what's the use of this kind of waste not dying?" After saying that, he kicks the doctor's body, sending him directly into the pile of corpse soldiers on the west side. In a split second, those corpse soldiers swarm over and gnaw the doctor's body clean. The air is deathly silent. Then, slowly, there's a tremble of panic, as well as sadness and despair, filling the air. Whether it's the doctors or the people who have been turned into corpse soldiers, they're just fish under the chopping block, without the slightest chance of survival. Alright, this wave of treatment is over, switch to the next. Qian Ping waves his hand. As a result, the rescued people are fed with goo children, slowly transforming into corpse soldiers. And the other people of Lotus City who haven't been saved once again become rations for the corpse soldiers. No. I won't save them. Finally, a doctor can't stand it anymore and roars hysterically, "Kill me if you have the ability, kill me ah. I'm a doctor of the Junji Medical Center, you're so insane, the Enchantress of Medicine will definitely not let you off." Ha. Junji Medical Center. The Enchantress of Medicine. Qian Ping lets out a loud laugh. "Do you know who my master is?" "That's Qian Qing, the miracle-working doctor. How dare an insignificant doctor compete with my master and the princess? Let me tell you, I was afraid that your Enchantress wouldn't come. If she dares to come here, I'll make sure she dies without a burial place." At that time, the princess and his master would definitely look at him in a new light. As soon as Qian Ping finished speaking, suddenly, a loud bang sound came from the direction of Lotus Town's gate. Everyone turned to look at the source of the voice. A group of people dressed in elegant sky blue robes walked in one after another. Every single one of these people had outstanding looks, and their attire was either noble and graceful, or elegant and otherworldly. If one looked closely, they would discover that the two words, "Heavenly Secrets," were embroidered on the corners of their clothes. Qian Ping couldn't react for a moment. Where did these people come from? How did they break such a heavy iron door? But before he could ask, above the walls of the Lotus Formation, densely packed figures began to appear. These people were all tall men dressed in black. Each and every one of them looked ferocious and didn't conceal the cold killing intent on their bodies in the slightest. Chapter 586. Who are you people? Qian Ping quickly took a step back and hid behind the guard, looking at the two people in bewilderment. As soon as his question falls, he sees that no matter if it's upstairs or downstairs, the people of the Ink camp and the Tianji unit all scatter to the sides. From the gate tower to the bottom of the city wall, they make a wide path. The melodious sound of the zither floats in the air. Soon after, several silhouettes seem to descend from the sky, slowly descending from the passage that the Ink camp had left behind. The leader was a young girl dressed in white. Her skin was as white as snow, emitting a sparkling radiance under the sunlight. Her eyes were sparkling and the corners of her eyes were slightly raised. It was as if she was infinitely charming and calm. Qian Ping swallowed his saliva and stared blankly. He had never seen such a beautiful girl before. Just by looking at it from afar, it was as if his soul had been hooked away. No matter who this person was, if he could get his hands on him and have some fun, he would be more carefree than an immortal. However, as the girl got closer and closer, Qian Ping's expression began to become bewildered. Why did the girl in front of him look so familiar? Only when she was only 30 feet away from Qian Qing did the young girl leisurely stop. Her red lips curled up slightly, and a faint smile appeared on her beautiful face. I heard that you're looking for me. The bewilderment in Qian Ping's heart grew heavier and heavier. His gaze fell unblinkingly on her face. You, who exactly are you? Madam Enchantress, you've finally come to save us. Suddenly coming back to his senses, Dr. Yu and the others throw themselves in front of Mayan with snot and tears all over their faces. There's fear and shame on their faces. Qian Ping suddenly widens his eyes. You're the Enchantress of Medicine, Jun Mayan. Ru Yan, who is standing behind Mu Yan, pulls out an armchair and places it behind Mu Yan like a magic trick. Mayan smiles faintly and sits down. Her hands gently pluck the strings of the Tian Imo Qin, the corners of her mouth slightly raised as she looks at Qian Ping. Behind her, Yan Haotian, Feng Haitang, Ru Yan, and Bai Chen were like four guardian gods, firmly guarding her from behind. Yeah, I'm Jun Mayan. There was a smile on her face, and her face was as beautiful as a flower. Didn't you say that as long as I dared to come, you would consign me to eternal damnation? Qian Ping's body trembled slightly, his eyes widened, but he did not answer the question. Jun Mu Yan, you really are Jun Mu Yan, the woman who was pregnant with the immortal fetus back then, tisk. Mu Yan frowned slightly, and the smile on her face disappeared. How boring, how could I casually bump into an old acquaintance? Since you're able to recognize me, it means that you were also involved in what happened back then. Qian Ping looked into her bone-chilling eyes and shuddered. He opened his mouth to say something. Mu Yan has already waved her hand, coldly saying, "Kill without mercy." As soon as his voice falls, the people of the Heavenly Secret Unit and the Ink Camp move. In just a moment, the heads of the men in black rolled on the ground. Qian Ping, whose hands and feet have been removed, crawls at Mayan's feet, letting out sorrowful cries and pleas. Mu Yan said indifferently, "Where's Qian Qing?" Master. Master is in the underground palace in the center of the city, cultivating the golden silkworm goo. Spare me, boo-hoo. I don't want to die. Mu Yan plucked the strings of the zither in her hands, and Qian Ping's head is immediately removed. Chapter 587. Other than nurturing spies, the secret division also recruited skilled craftsmen. One of them had developed an extremely powerful thunder flame. It's just that the people of the Tianji unit don't like to use this, but that bunch of uncouth guys from the Ying camp really like it. Once they heard that Mu Yan allowed them to use the thunder fire, each and every one of them immediately became excited as if they were injected with chicken blood. Dozens of people rushed to the center of the city. Under the shocked gazes of the surviving commoners and doctors. Suddenly, boom! Rumble! Rumble! Dozens of loud noises resounded, the earth quaked, the mountain swayed, and the houses collapsed. This huge power scared everyone so much that their faces turned pale. Not long after, a few figures rushed out of the thick smoke as if their butts were on fire. Every single one of them was covered in dirt, looking indescribably pathetic. Who are they? Are you tired of living? You actually dare to make a move in Lotus Town. Mu Yan smiled and looked at the old man in the lead, Dr. Qian, long time no see. How have you been? Ru Yan, who was standing behind Mu Yan, looked at the old man's face that was covered in ash, and only his eyes were white. She couldn't help but burst out laughing. Looks like godly Dr. Qian isn't too unharmed. If you didn't tell me, I would have thought that you were a beggar. Qian Qing's line of sight falls firmly on Mayan's face. After a long time, he enunciates each word, June. Mu. Face. It's really you. However, as soon as he opened his mouth, a puff of black smoke suddenly sprayed out. His original imposing manner of gritting his teeth suddenly became somewhat comical. Ha 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 ha. A group of people from the Ying camp couldn't bear it any longer, holding their stomachs as they laugh until they fall. Dr. Qian, how did the thunder god fire taste just now? Do you want to try 2 more? What miracle, Dr. Qian? I think Qian roast pig is more reliable. Ha 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 ha. Money roasted pig, that's the truth. It's just that this pig is black and stinky from head to toe. I don't want to taste it. As a divine doctor, Qian Qing had always been revered by people all these years, so when had he ever suffered such humiliation? His face contorted. However, he quickly calmed down, took the towel handed over by his subordinate, and wiped off the black ash on his face. After Qian Qing wiped away the soot, a familiar face appeared. The killing intent in the depths of Mayan's eyes slowly diffuses. Back then, it was this person who used the excuse of diagnosing her. She sold the news that she was pregnant with the fetus of immortal spirit to Gong Qinxue. From then on, she fell into an endless hell, eternally tormented by pain and regret. After wiping away the dirt on her face, Qian Qing recovered her sage-like demeanor and said with a leisurely smile, June Mayan, it's really been a long time. This old man really didn't expect that the weak and pitiful little girl from back then would actually grow to such an extent. This old man really feels gratified for you. Mu Yan said lightly, after so many years, it's really hard for Dr. Qian to remember me. How could I forget? That was the first and only immortal spirit fetus that this old man had ever felt. Before that, this old man had always thought that the secret technique passed down in my family was fake. Miracle Dr. Qian was still smiling as he said, this is also the fate between you, me, and the divine fetus. Since we have reunited today, don't you intend to let me see the child from back then? I'm sure he must have grown into a handsome little boy by now, right? Chapter 588. Mayan's fingers suddenly press down on the Tian Mo Qin. The zither makes a humming sound. Her eyes are as deep and serene as the cold pools of hell, bottomless. The raging hatred from her past life rushes up like a tide. The strings are gently plucked, and the melodious sound of the zither is heard. The mist-dispersing clouds, skill quietly circulates along with her internal force. The raging hatred in Mayan's heart, as well as the uncontrollable desire to massacre, are also suppressed back to their original positions. A lazy smile slowly spreads out on her lips. Qianqing, do you really think I don't know that you were the one who informed Gong Qinxue that I was pregnant with an immortal fetus? Back then, she pretended to care for me and took pity on me. She investigated my identity and whereabouts, and then sold me to Gong Qinxue. That's why Gong Qinxue bribed the Su family and wanted to take away the child from my belly. Am I right, godly Dr. Qian? The gentle smile on Qianqing's face vanishes without a trace in a split second. Sure enough, you already know what happened back then. A cruel smile appears on his face, but what can you do even if you know? The one who wants your child is Yanwu Continent's #1 genius, Jingqing country's most powerful princess, Gong Qinxue. She's even a brilliant disciple of the Heavenly Road sect. She took a fancy to the child in your belly, that's your honor. It's the same now. As long as you give me your child, I guarantee that in the future, whether you want a treasure, power, status, or a rapid increase in strength, it will all be as easy as turning over your hand. He still hasn't finished his words. The sound of the zither under Mayan's hand suddenly changes. Clanging golden spears. Hundreds of cold lights shoot towards Qianqing. Qianqing's cultivation is extremely high, but facing such frightening internal force blades, he can't hide. In just the blink of an eye, there are countless wounds on his body. At the same time, the swords of the Ink Camp and the Tianji unit are suddenly unsheathed, pointing straight at Qianqing. Mayan's lazy but cold voice comes through the air. Listening to you speak for even a moment longer makes me sick. Qianqing, I think you'd better shut your mouth for me forever. Qianqing sneers. Jun Mayan, I advise you not to refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Hand over the child, and you still have a chance to live. Otherwise, do you really think you have a chance of winning with just these people? After saying that, he pinched his fingers together and blew on them. The corpse soldiers on the west side of the town, who were originally standing there like puppets, immediately rushed over and surrounded Mu Yan and the others. Qianqing laughed heartily and said, Jun Mayan, no matter how many people you have under your command, could it be more than half of the common people of Lotus City? Besides, the underground palace of Lotus Flower City has been destroyed. The princess must have already received the news. Very soon, someone will come over and capture all of you in one fell swoop. Seeing that the girl in front of him didn't say anything, he felt a chill run down his spine. Qianqing became more and more pleased with himself. I'll give you one more chance. As long as you hand over that child, I promise I'll definitely plead for leniency in front of the princess and spare your life. You have to think it through. You can have more children in the future, but you only have one chance to live and prosper. Don't tell me that your child's life is more important than your own. Mu Yan lifts her eyes, a smile on the corner of her mouth, but her eyes are incomparably cold. Unfortunately, I want your life even more. Qianqing's face changed, and he finally flew into a rage out of humiliation. However, this time, without waiting for him to say anything, Mu Yan's words are like an order. Chapter 589. Qianqing only feels a mouthful of blood stifled in his heart, but he doesn't care about the Ink Camp and the Tianji unit's attack. The Ink Camp and the Tianji unit have a lot of people, but can they outnumber the corpse soldiers? Their cultivation is higher than the corpse soldiers, but can it be higher than these peak heaven stage and early pre-celestial guards by his side? He has already inquired about it, and these people have only been following Mayan for a year and a half. Originally, these people were just slaves in Wanrenku, or those with very ordinary qualifications. It's only been a year and a half. How much progress can they make? Qianqing is calm and unperturbed as he looks at Mayan, his gaze blazing. When this woman's subordinates are all killed, she'll cry and crawl at his feet, and hand over the child formed from the immortal fetus. Thump! Thump! Suddenly, two heads roll to his feet, carrying a strong smell of blood. Qianqing frowns and kicks one away. These must be those useless corpse soldiers. Uncultivated corpse soldiers are useless, just a few hits and they'll be wasted. Qianqing is about to kick the second head away, when he suddenly stops. His eyes widen a little, then he looks incredulously at the face that's close at hand. This face is covered in blood, a pair of eyes wide open, the whole face full of alarm and disbelief. But this clearly isn't the face of a corpse soldier, but it's the guard by his side. That's a peak heaven stage guard. Qianqing suddenly looks up, and his figure suddenly freezes. No, impossible. This is absolutely impossible. He doesn't know when it started, but the guards by his side have already been reduced by half. As for the corpse soldiers, they were beheaded one after another as if they were chopping vegetables. With a thump, a corpse falls towards Qianqing. A long gash is split open on his stomach, and blood gurgles out. The guard grabs Qianqing's hand and shouts, "Save me! Save me!" Qianqing cries out in alarm, and suddenly shakes off the guard. Very soon, the ink camp people rush up, and their swords fall, cutting off the guard's head. That's a heaven stage, even a pre-celestial expert. How could they be so vulnerable? Qianqing lets out an almost hysterical roar. Then, melodious music slowly drifted into his ears. The music was clearly so beautiful and pleasant to listen to. However, in Qianqing's ears, it caused his entire body to feel hot and uneasy, and he was utterly unable to properly condense his profound energy. On the contrary, the people of the ink camp and the heavenly secret unit, listening to the sound of the zither, it's as if they're listening to the imperial edict. The more they fight, the braver they become. Qianqing's lifeless gaze slowly shifts to Mu Yan's hand. The girl's hand was so beautiful, as white as jade, with well-proportioned joints, slender. When he gently plucked the strings, it was as if he was using a feather to pluck the heartstrings of a person. As he moved his fingers, beautiful musical notes flowed out and danced in the air. But it was precisely this pair of slender, jade-like hands and this beautiful and melodious music that led to an unimaginable massacre. Level 3 Shin Musician Skill, Graceful Feather Dress. AoE Support Skill, using the sound of the zither to lock onto allies and enemies. Within a quarter of an hour, the strength of their own members would increase by 30%, while the strength of the enemy would decrease by 30%. What did that mean? In other words, he forcibly pulled Qianqing's Xiantian level guards to heaven level. Chapter 590. In addition, the ink camp and the Tianji unit have practiced the formation and cooperation countless times. Thus, in Qianqing's mind, the formidable defensive force, they were cleanly chopped down like withered twigs and rotten wood. When he's kicked in the butt by Guanhu and falls to the ground, his brain still hasn't reacted. He keeps muttering, "Impossible, how is this possible? How is this possible?" His gaze suddenly turns to Mu Yan, his lips tremble for a long time, unable to say a complete sentence. You, who are you? Why, how can she achieve such a frightening result just by relying on the sound of the zither? Defeating the strong with the weak. Defeating the many with the few. Defeating a pre-celestial with the heaven stage. Just because of a musician's zither. Are you kidding me? How could there be such a powerful musician in this world? Mu Yan's fingers pluck, and the sound of the zither stops. She stands up and steps towards Qianqing. Qianqing is so scared that he suddenly falls back, using his hands and feet to desperately crawl backwards. No, no. You can't kill me. I'm the pavilion master of Xian Medical Pavilion. I'm a famous genius doctor. If you kill me, Xian Medical Pavilion won't let you off. Xian Medical Pavilion. Ru Yan sneers. Oh, if Dr. Qian didn't mention Xian Medical Pavilion, I would have forgotten. On our way to Lotus City, we just happened to pass by the headquarters of Xian Medical Pavilion. The hands of our brothers were itching, so we took over that Xian Medical Pavilion. Xian Qing's eyes widen, his body stiffens for a long time, then he screams, "Impossible. How is this possible? I raised the poison men in Xian Medical Pavilion, it's my blood and sweat for decades, how is this possible? Hee, those poison men My brothers chopped them into pieces and fed them to your disciples and grand-disciples. Guan Hu grins, I really didn't expect that those poison men of yours would be so fierce. They only tasted a few mouthfuls, and those disciples and grand-disciples of yours would all be dead. Oh, there's also those rare medicinal herbs that you've collected. It just so happens that our Nether Flame Army's Immortal Battalion is in urgent need of medicinal herbs, so we'll gladly accept it. Xian Qing's body trembles like a sieve, her mouth incessantly muttering, It can't be, my Xian Medical Pavilion, how could it be destroyed so easily? Mayan says unhurriedly, Godly Dr. Qian, you just said that you want the people of Xian Medical Pavilion to kill us. No. I'm talking nonsense. Xian Qing abruptly comes back to his senses. In a split second, his face is covered in snot and tears. He crawls over to Mu Yan and keeps crying, Miss June, please spare me. Back then, it was Gong Qinxue who instigated it. I was only coerced by her. Yes, it was she who coerced me to tell her all about you. For the sake of your miscarriage, I beg you, please spare my life. Woo. Mu Yan looked down at him begging for mercy like a dog. After a long silence, she said, Dr. Qian, do you really want to live? Yes, I want to live. As long as Miss June spares me, even if I have to work like a cow or a horse, I will be willing. There's no need to work like a cow or a horse. Mayan chuckles, but there's one thing that I really need Dr. Qian's help with. Saying that, she unhurriedly walks over to Dr. Yu and the others. Chapter 591. Mayan's expression turns gentle, softly saying, Doctors, don't be afraid, you've all been implicated by me. I promise I won't let anything happen to you. With a flick of her wrist, dozens of porcelain bottles are placed in front of them. Doctors, are you willing to believe me? Drink this bottle of draft, and I'll take out the mother goo from your bodies. Dr. Yu and the others look at each other, then pick up the draft without hesitation and drink it all in one gulp. Almost as soon as these people drink the draft, their stomachs rumble, and their faces distort from the pain. However, before they can cry out in pain, Mayan has already moved. Her movements are very fast, cutting open a person's stomach in almost a breath's time. She takes out the black worms inside and puts them in a jade box. It's unknown if it's because of the life-saving draft she just drank, or the fact that Mayan's cuts aren't big, so those wounds quickly heal at a speed visible to the naked eye. After a short few dozen breaths, Mayan has taken out all the goo worms from the doctor's stomachs. But these people who had their stomachs cut open are completely unscathed. Even the wound of the first one, Dr. Yu, has already completely healed. These people can't even react to what just happened. Madam Enchantress, your medical skills are truly superb. When they suddenly wake up, Dr. Yu and the others all kneel down, looking at Mayan with eyes full of worship. Thank you for saving our lives. Even if the person before them is a budding girl. In terms of age, Mayan is still too young to be their granddaughter. However, at this very moment, Mayan's medical skills, her strength, and her character have already conquered all the doctors present. Mayan smiles at them, then turns around and returns to Qianqing. Qianqing looks at the jade box holding the goo worms in her hands, and her complexion turns deathly pale. June Mayan, what do you want to do? Do what? Mayan tilts her head, revealing a somewhat innocent smile. Of course it's the thing that godly Dr. Qian likes to do to others the most. Qianqing trembles and screams, June Mayan, don't act recklessly. These mother goo in your hands are the last golden silkworm larvae in Qianque's hands. If you kill them all, Gong Qianque, she absolutely won't let you off. Oh. Really? That's great. It just so happens that I never intended to let her off. Saying that, Mu Yan slowly opens the jade box. Qianqing let out a shrill cry as the profound energy within her body suddenly circulated, and she was about to flee. However, just as he flew 10 feet away. Then, he felt a sharp pain on his forehead. Bai Chen, who was guarding behind him, had kicked him back. Qianqing cries out in pain, rolls a few times, and returns in front of Mu Yan. Mu Yan squatted down and said casually, Miracle Dr. Qian, I advise you not to move around. Otherwise, I won't be responsible if you accidentally pull off an intestine when you cut open your stomach and put in the goo worm. Qianqing desperately struggled to escape, but her body suddenly felt as if it was filled with lead, completely unable to move. Tears and snot streamed down his face as he pleaded loudly, Spare me. I won't dare to do it again. The expression on Mayan's face turns cold inch by inch. Qianqing, don't you like to cut open people's bellies and take away their children? How can you not be happy that your stomach was cut open today? Chapter 592. Using your identity as a doctor, you want to use other people's children in exchange for your own bright future. You even told Gong Qianque that if she ate my child, her skills would greatly improve. The cause of everything is this animal doctor with a human face but a beast's heart. In her previous life, she lost her child, lost everything, and fell into the most painful abyss. But this man, using the resources he obtained from Gong Qianque, he made a meteoric rise, becoming a godly doctor that everyone in Yanwu continent admires. Such a cruel and unscrupulous man, treating other people's lives as worthless. But when his own life is threatened, he cries and snot, incessantly begging for mercy. But Qianqing, what qualifications do you have to be forgiven? Miss, why don't you let me do it? Guan, who is eager to give it a try, this subordinate likes to cut open people's stomachs the most. We can do it too. We can do it too. The other people from the Ink camp are also in high spirits. Mu Yan's taut emotions, immersed in hatred, suddenly relax. She still hasn't spoken. Among the citizens of Lotus Town, a commoner suddenly steps out, gritting his teeth and saying, This fairy doctor, can you let me cut open this person's stomach? Can you let me put these goo worms in with my own hands? My child was thrown into the pile of corpse soldiers by this group of bastards, not even his bones were left. That middle-aged woman chokes with sobs as she speaks, her hateful eyes unwaveringly glaring at Qianqing. My husband has been turned into a monster that's neither human nor ghost. I wish I could eat his flesh raw, gnaw his bones. Me too. Fairy doctor, I beg you, let us do it. Mu Yan raises the corner of her mouth, full of interest as she looks at Qianqing, who has already turned deathly pale from fright. She chuckles and says, Dr. Qian, you see, a lot of people want to serve you. If I don't fulfill their wishes, wouldn't I be letting down everyone's good intentions? She raises her head, handing the dagger and the jade box containing the goo worms to the middle-aged woman. That middle-aged woman sees that Mu Yan has really agreed, and her face flushes with excitement. She takes the dagger, and without hesitation, she slashes open Qianqing's stomach. Qianqing immediately let out a miserable howl like a pig being slaughtered as he watched the goo worms being stuffed into his stomach. The intense pain and the fear of death makes Qianqing unable to help but curse, Jun Mayan, you poisonous woman, you won't have a good death. I am Gong Qinshue's person. If you dare to kill me, Gong Qinsue will definitely not let you off. Oh. Jun Mayan, don't be too pleased with yourself. Gong Qinsue already knows that you're the one who was pregnant with the immortal fetus. She definitely won't let you and your child off. Just wait to be refined into elixirs by Gong Qinsue and eaten alive. Ugh. Qianqing hadn't finished his insane threat. Suddenly, someone grabbed his chin. Yan Haotian sneered and pulled out his tongue. He sheathed his saber and slashed down. Immediately, blood splattered everywhere. He had always remembered that the young mistress had said that she didn't want to hear him speak anymore. But a moment later, all the goo worms were sent into Qianqing's stomach. Qianqing's mouth was full of blood as he struggled on the ground. Each and every one of the common people of Lotus City was still filled with righteous indignation, their hatred and anger had yet to dissipate. One by one, they rushed forward, punching and kicking Qianqing. There was even someone who directly chopped off his hands that wanted to resist. Chapter 593. As the doctor's internal force revolves, his body dries up at a speed visible to the naked eye. On the contrary, his belly swells up high, even higher than any of the doctor's just now. Seeing that Qianqing has no way out, and will slowly die in hellish pain and torture. Only then will the doctors and the people be satisfied. Miss, in this Lotus town, we only found Dr. Yu and the others. Chang Yu, Chen Qingfeng, and Dr. Song aren't here. I'm afraid they're still in Gong Qinshue's hands. Ru Yan worriedly reports, if Gong Qinsue uses Dr. Song and the others to threaten us, I'm afraid that our actions will be restrained from taking action. Moreover, we still haven't found out where Gong Qinshue's real stronghold is. Hearing this, Mayan doesn't speak for a long time. Her line of sight shifts slightly and falls on the western sky. The corner of her mouth hooks up into a cold arc. Don't worry, there's a place where someone must know Gong Qinshue's whereabouts. Moreover, doesn't Gong Qinsue like to use hostages to threaten us? Then we'll get more hostages and see who's the one threatening who in the end. Hearing this, Ru Yan's eyes brighten. Miss, where are the hostages you spoke of? Before Mu Yan could reply, several people of Lotus Flower Town walked in front of her. Madam Enchantress of Medicine, many thanks for your life-saving grace. Everyone in our Lotus Flower Town will never forget your great kindness and kindness for generations to come. These people kneeling on the ground are representatives chosen by the people of Lotus Town. Each one of them is a person of virtue and prestige, and their age is more than enough to be Mayan's grandfather. How could Mayan dare to accept such a big gift? She quickly helps them up. Who knows that these people are determined not to get up? Instead, they ask with red eyes, Madam Enchantress of Medicine, just now, listening to the conversation between you and that beast Qianqing, we seem to have heard that the disaster that my Lotus town has suffered today was caused by Gong Qinsue. Mayan's movements pause, and after a long while, she nods. Yes, Gong Qinsue should be using Lotus town as her place to raise corpse soldiers. She's the princess of your Jingqing country. What are your plans? Bah! How could that disgusting poisonous woman be worthy of being Jingqing country's princess? Their Gong family also doesn't deserve to own Jingqing country. The old man in the lead gnashed his teeth and roared, Madam Enchantress, we know that you and that Gong Qinsue have an irreconcilable enmity. We, the people of Lotus Town, are willing to lend you a hand. We must publicize Gong Qinshue's vicious actions to all the people of Jingqing country. We will make Gong Qinsue lose all standing and reputation, let the Gong family's dynasty in Jingqing country be completely destroyed. Jingqing Country, Imperial Capital, Anlong City. Miss, this is the Imperial Palace of Jingqing Country. Ru Yan blinks her eyes and says in disbelief, "Don't tell me that when you said to capture more hostages than Gong Qinxue, you mean to capture them in the Imperial Palace of Jingqing Country?" Mu Yan slightly raises her eyebrows. "What? You don't dare to make a move. This is the royal family of Jingqing Country." Ru Yan is so excited that her face turns slightly red. "I heard that the Gong family has been the ruler of Jingqing Country for hundreds of years. There are countless experts in the Imperial Palace, but no one has ever been able to shake their foundation." The corner of Mu Yan's mouth raises into a slight smile. "So, you guys don't dare to make a move?" Chapter 594. Are we going to usurp the throne in Jingqing Country? Are we going to be rebels and traitors? That's great. This is in line with the style of our ink camp. Piak. A slap landed on Guanhu's head. Feng Haitang said coldly, "If you don't know how to talk, don't talk nonsense." He actually compared their young miss to a traitor. Was this guy tired of living? Guanhu gloomily wanted to refute, but he saw that the one who hit him was Feng Haitang. He immediately looked at Yan Haotian carefully and swallowed his words. This Feng Haitang was their leader's favorite person. How could they dare to offend her? At this moment, Ru Yan seems as if she has just woken up from a dream. Her face is dizzy. "My God, we only have a little more than 100 people coming this time, and you actually want to destroy the Imperial Palace of Jingqing Country and take the royal family of Jingqing Country hostage. I'm not dreaming, am I?" "Heh heh, Miss Ruyan, only when you succeed like this, do you feel refreshed." This time, Mu Yan only brought Bai Chen, Ru Yan, Yan Haotian, Feng Haitang, Old Tao, the leaders of the various camps, as well as the most elite of the three camps. Because only with a small number of people could they sneak into Anlong City without anyone noticing. But it was just as Ru Yan said. If these 100 people want to take down Jingqing Country's Imperial Palace, it's just like a dream. One must know that there are a lot of experts in Jingqing Country's royal palace. There were more than 10 Xiantian realm martial artists. How could they succeed? At night, the Imperial Palace of Jingqing Country is still brightly lit, singing and dancing to celebrate peace. It was obviously so noisy, and there were bursts of music. However, suddenly, a strand of zither music drifted into everyone's ears in a leisurely manner. The sound of the zither was so beautiful that it seemed to be able to penetrate deep into one's bones. "Your First Highness, what music is this? How could it be so wonderful?" Jingqing Country's great prince Gong Qinya's reading companion couldn't help but ask with an intoxicated expression. The other people in the palace were already in a trance, and their eyes were gradually blurred, as if they had lost focus. Gong Qinya's eyes were red as he staggered outside. Who? Which beauty was playing the zither? Quickly come into this prince's arms and let this prince dote on you. Suddenly, his study companion cried out in alarm, "Your Highness, look, that person is at the top of the Palace of Heavenly Purity." The Hall of Heavenly Purity is the tallest building in the Imperial Palace of Jingqing Country. The roof of the hall was pointed. The high roof almost reached the clouds. But even from such a distance, that pure white slender figure was still so clear. The bright moonlight sprinkled on the top of the peak, as if plated the figure with a lustrous white light. He was so far away that he couldn't even see his face clearly. But just a glance at her ethereal, fairy-like figure and her graceful movements that seemed as if she were about to soar into the sky was enough to enchant Gong Qinya. Which beauty has arrived? Gong Qinya's voice is too loud as he shouts, "At home is Jingqing Country's eldest prince, Gong Qinya. As long as you're willing to come down and accompany this prince for a night of spring, this prince can guarantee that you'll enjoy endless glory, splendor and wealth. However, the people above did not seem to hear him at all. The sound of the zither was still spreading. From the beginning, it was only around the palace of heavenly purity. Slowly, the entire imperial palace seemed to be shrouded in the sound of the zither. Chapter 595. Guards. Gong Qinya shouts, "Quickly send someone to invite that beauty down for me." Hearing this, the guards beside Gong Qinya immediately soar up. Each and every one of them has a cultivation above heaven stage. Climbing the hall of heavenly purity is absolutely as easy as turning one's hand. However, these people have just reached the roof, not waiting for them to approach. The sound of the zither abruptly changes, turning into a powerful army. In a split second, countless sharp blades come whistling out. Puff, puff, puff. With a few sudden sounds, these guards are pierced by the invisible blades, turning into a hornet's nest. One by one, they fall from the roof. The last thing they see before they die is a beautiful girl, smiling brightly under the moonlight. That smile is bright and holy, like a fairy that has fallen from the ninth heaven to the mortal world. And the girl's soft and sweet-sounding whisper, the performance of "Floating Like a Dream," is almost finished. It's time to start, graceful feather. This scene almost stupefies everyone. Gong Qinya didn't expect that so many of his powerful subordinates would be completely wiped out in the blink of an eye. Who is this woman? Why did she suddenly appear here? Gong Qinya's heart thumps, and he's about to have someone alert the entire imperial palace. Suddenly, he sees a white figure, like a floating cloud, flying down from the sky above the hall of heavenly purity. When he sees the girl's countenance up close, Gong Qinya's breathing almost stops. So beautiful. How could there be such a beautiful person in this world? Gong Qinya murmurs, reaching out towards Mayan. His eyes are filled with intoxication and greed. "Beauty, I don't care who you are, as long as you are willing to become this prince's favored concubine, this prince will forgive your crime of disrespect just now. How about it?" His hand was about to come into contact with that delicate skin. Suddenly, a cold light flashes. Gong Qinya immediately feels a sharp pain in his hand. He doesn't even have time to react before he sees his hand, which was about to touch Mayan, fall from his wrist. Blood suddenly gushes out like a fountain. Gong Qinya lets out a blood-curdling scream, and is supported by the reading companion behind him. "Who the hell are you?" The reading companion roared angrily. "Do you know who this person is? You actually dare to hurt Jingqing country's first prince, are you tired of living?" He did not finish his sentence. Suddenly, countless heaven-shaking battle cries came from all directions. From afar, one can hear Jingqing country's imperial palace's guards shouting in anger and alarm, "Who are you people? Don't you have eyes? This is the imperial palace of Jingqing country, and you actually dare to trespass." "Ah! Hee, we barged in because we knew this was the Gong family's nest. Why? Why can't I use my profound energy?" Ah! In a short period of time, the entire imperial palace was in chaos. Even the emperor of Jingqing country and the other princes have been woken up from their dreams and hurried over. Seeing the injury on Gong Qinya's hand, Jingqing country's emperor Gong Yanhai sees his eldest son screaming miserably with a broken hand. He immediately exclaims, "Year, what happened to you?" "Your Majesty, it's her. It's this woman who hurt His Highness." Gong Qinya's reading companion points at Mayan and shouts. Those thieves who broke into the imperial palace must have been brought in by this witch. Chapter 596. Mayan raises her eyes to look at him, her expression leisurely and careless. At this time, she's casually sitting on an old-fashioned wooden armchair, gently plucking the strings. It's different from the melodious and sweet sound of Floating Like a Dream. The music of A Graceful Feather starts off in a low voice, making people almost unable to hear it, as if it's crying and complaining. It's only later that it slowly becomes more and more sonorous. As the music gradually increases in pitch, the two sides of the battle are slowly locked on, and given positive and negative support. Until that A Graceful Feather locks on all the people present. Mayan slightly slows down the movement of her fingers, chuckling, "It doesn't matter who I am. What's important is that I would like to ask everyone to come with me." Ha! Gong Yanhai seems to think that he's heard the funniest joke. Who do you think you are? You actually dare to behave atrociously in our Jingqing country's imperial palace. Saying that, he fiercely waves his hand and shouts angrily, "Come! Mobilize the Yulin royal guards, kill this thief for me." Almost as soon as his hand is waved down, a group of elite soldiers come to surround them from all directions. Although the people surrounding them aren't as powerful as Gong Yanhai thinks. But with just 100 people, it's more than enough to get rid of a little girl. Imperial father, leave this slut with her dog life. Gong Qinyet clenches his broken hand, gnashing his teeth. This child can't swallow this. I must torture her to death to dispel the hatred in my heart. Gong Yanhai casually nods, simply not taking Mayan's life or death to heart. However, he soon discovers that something's wrong. Because the group of black-clothed people that rushed out didn't surround the girl. Instead, they surrounded the group of people. Several people even walked to Mayan's side, bowing and kneeling towards her. "Greetings, Mississippi," Mayan asks faintly. "Did things go smoothly?" Guanhu laughs mischievously. "Miss, you used the sound of the zither to seal the internal force of most of the guards, and some of them are in a trance, as if they were dreaming. We broke into the palace gates without much effort. Now, the 4 gates of the north, south, east and west have all been blocked by us. I'm afraid no one will be able to enter in a short period of time. The third stage of Floating Like a Dream can only be used after the Shin musician skill has been unlocked to the 3rd level. It was different from before when it could only trap one person in the illusion. The 3rd stage, Floating Like a Dream, could be used on a large scale, causing those with low cultivation and weak willpower to fall into a temporary illusion. And in this short dream, Mu Yan could choose whether to increase their cultivation speed or directly seal the circulation of their profound qi. The rank 3, Floating Like a Dream, was similar to Graceful Feather, a skill that could be said to be a heaven-defying cheat. However, these two skills could only be activated with spiritual energy. After using these 2 skills in a row tonight, the spiritual power in Mu Yan's body has been completely consumed. He wouldn't be able to use it for the time being. However, Mu Yan did not care, because her profound qi could still be used. The royal family members in front of them had already become turtles in a jar. "You, who the hell are you people?" Gong Yanhai seemed to have just come to his senses. Chapter 597. Seeing that there aren't any soldiers coming, he finally panics a little. "What do you want?" "If you want gold, silver, treasures, rare elixirs, I can give them all to you. Moreover, our daughter is a brilliant disciple of the Heavenly Road sect, the #1 genius of the Yanwu continent. You should know that offending our Jingqing country will not end well." Ha ha ha. The people from the Ink camp can't help but laugh. What Jingqing country's royal family, it turns out to be just a bunch of gutless softies. "Dog Emperor, do you know why we want to lay our hands on you?" Why? Guanhu reveals his dense white teeth, saying sinisterly, "It's because your good daughter, Gong Qinshue, has an irreconcilable enmity with my family's Mississippi. As the saying goes, a daughter pays a father's debt, so a daughter's debt naturally has to be paid by you, her parents and relatives. So if you want to blame someone, blame that snake and scorpion's daughter of yours." Gong Yanhai's complexion greatly changes. He suddenly turns around and runs towards the rear with all his might. At this moment, he doesn't even care about the lives of his wife, children, and ministers. When the people from the Ink camp are about to catch up to him, he even directly grabs a concubine and blocks the blade for him. And it's also because of this moment of delay. A dozen or so gusts of wind suddenly break through the air from the southeast direction. Gong Yanhai's originally panicked face suddenly brightens when he sees these approaching figures. Ha 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 ha. Gong Yanhai snaps his head back, his face malevolent as he stares at Mayan. Your time of death has come. As he speaks, those dozen or so figures have already landed by Gong Yanhai's side. Bowing towards him, they say, Your Majesty, these subordinates have come to the rescue too late, kill them. Kill them all for me. Gong Yanhai abruptly interrupts them, panting heavily, except for that little slut, kill everyone else. I want them to know the consequences of provoking my Jingqing country's royal family. The guards in the palace have indeed all been dealt with by the people from the Ink camp. But those guards aren't the Gong family's biggest safeguard. Their safeguard is this group of pre-celestial experts. A whole 12 pre-celestial experts. That's a fighting force comparable to thousands of troops and horses. Gong Yanhai had just fled in a panic because he knew that these elders would soon arrive. As long as he could drag this out until the elders arrived, these thieves would definitely die. He viciously looked at the leader of the thieves, the girl who was so beautiful that she didn't seem like a mortal. He had expected to see her panic-stricken expression. Unexpectedly, her face was still as calm as before, and there was even a lazy smile on her lips. Seeing the 12 people approaching him, Yang Ling's eyes widened. Mayan waves her hand, Tianji unit, Ink camp, withdraw. Guard the palace gates. It's the sound. With a response, the more than 100 people who had just surrounded Mayan retreated like a tide. Only Mu Yan, Bai Chen, Yan Haotian, Ru Yan, and Feng Haitang were left on the field. Mu Yan stretched out a slender jade finger and pointed at the surrounding pre-celestial experts. She chuckled and said, 1, 2, 3, 4, a total of 12 people. I'll take 8 and you 4. How about it? Hearing this, Bai Chen and the others looked ashamed. The young miss dealt with 8 by herself, while the 4 of them could only deal with 4. This was simply telling them how big of a gap there was between them and the young miss. However, they couldn't refute him at all. Chapter 598. Except for Bai Chen, who can easily deal with an early pre-celestial, it's a bit difficult for the others to kill a pre-celestial expert alone, even with the help of Feather Grace. Just as they're feeling depressed, they suddenly hear a cold childish voice coming from somewhere. Nyangqin, Xiao Bao can also take care of too. A little boy who looks like a doll carved from jade pokes his head out from behind Mu Yan. He grabs Mu Yan's hand and gently shakes it, his face resolute. Ru Yan and the others are already used to Xiao Bao's mysterious appearance. They don't find it strange that he suddenly appears. Mu Yan just smiles and says, okay, then Xiao Bao will take care of these 2 ugly ones. The 4 people suddenly become even more depressed. They can't compare to the miss, but now they can't even compare to a 4-year-old child. They really want to bang their heads and die. Death is at hand, but they're still talking nonsense. The old man who leads the 12 people, a high pre-celestial, sneers, mere 5 heaven stages, and they actually have the audacity to fight against us pre-celestial experts. This is the biggest joke I've ever heard. Yan Haotian and the others suddenly turn their eyes to the 12 people. The grievance in their hearts instantly turns into a strong fighting spirit. Even if they're weaker than the miss, but these annoying old men, they must get rid of them cleanly and neatly. Otherwise, how can they be qualified to be the leaders of the 4th camp? As early as when Mu Yen was only a middle pre-celestial, she could already fight against more than 10 ghost envoys in the ghost city. Not to mention that she has now reached the peak of pre-celestial. In just half an hour, the 6 pre-celestial practitioners that Mu Yen has locked onto are already lying on the ground, dying. She doesn't pay attention to Gong Yanhai's scream of horror and his almost fainted face. Mu Yen calmly plucks the strings of the zither, playing the feather grace, with her remaining spiritual power while giving pointers to Yan Haotian and the others in their fight. The second person to kill his opponent is Xiao Bao. As soon as he's done, he immediately runs to Mu Yan's side and raises his little face to look at her. His big watery eyes are filled with excitement and expectation. This expression, like that of an ordinary child asking for praise, makes Mu Yan laugh. She picks up Xiao Bao and kisses him on his soft little face, then praises, "Xiao Bao is really amazing, you're already at the peak of heaven stage." Xiao Bao nodded heavily. This time, he didn't just skip the high rank of heaven rank and break through to the peak of heaven rank. Furthermore, even his spiritual root was showing signs of being molded. Mu Yen kisses his face a few more times. During this time, the people of Jingqing country's royal family panicked and wanted to escape. But when Mu Yen plucked the zither strings and the zither sound blades, transformed into countless blades, cutting their skin, they immediately screamed in horror and fell to the ground. On the other side, Bai Chen had already finished his battle and returned to Mu Yan's side. He was already at the peak of the heaven stage and was only one step away from the innate stage. Coupled with the assistance of the feather grace, it only took him more than an hour to deal with a mid-level pre-celestial expert. Mu Yen glanced at him and said with a smile, "After this battle, you can prepare to break through to the innate realm." Bai Chen's eyes lit up. He didn't say anything but nodded solemnly. Compared to Mu Yen, Xiao Bao, and Bai Chen, who are relaxed, Yan Haotian, Ru Yan, and Feng Haitong's battles were much more difficult. Chapter 599. Moreover, they relied on Mayan's zither sound and elixirs to break through in a short time. It can be said that they simply have no combat experience. So even with the help of the graceful feather, they are still racking their brains, and there are bloody wounds all over their bodies. But Mayan doesn't have the slightest intention to help. Because she knows that these people can only truly grow after experiencing cruel battles, and only then can they bear the responsibility of a camp leader. Finally, a full hour has passed. A message comes from the Ink camp, "Miss, we can't drag it any longer. Jingqing country's army is already attacking the city gate, our brothers can't hold on much longer." Maya nods, just as she's about to speak only to hear a loud bang, and Yan Haotian's opponent crashes to the ground. At the moment of his death, his eyes are still wide open, filled with unwillingness and aghast. Until his death, he still couldn't figure out why he, a dignified pre-celestial expert, would lose to a heaven-grade practitioner. Yan Haotian's victory is like an omen. Ru Yan's figure suddenly becomes almost invisible, like a phantom. That pre-celestial expert has been playing with Ru Yan, leaving deep wounds on her body that are visible to the bone. But at this moment, she suddenly panics. Because she can't see or feel where Ru Yan is at all. It's like in a split second, Ru Yan's speed has risen to the limit that humans can bear. The next moment, that pre-celestial practitioner only feels a pain in his neck, and his head is directly cut off. And Feng Haitong's hand turns blood red in an instant. When that blood-red palm slaps the pre-celestial practitioner's body. He didn't care at first, but later he finds that his internal force is becoming thinner and thinner, and he can't even use it. In the end, a long sword pierced through his heart, killing him. Yan Haotian, Ru Yan, and Feng Haitang slowly walk in front of Mayan. Their bodies are riddled with scars, and with every step they take, blood drips down. But their eyes are unprecedentedly bright, confident, and full of expectations for the future. Mayan raises the corner of her mouth, revealing a cheerful smile. You guys did very well, I'm proud of you. With just this sentence, the trio's eyes instantly turn red. Almost at the same time, the three of them knelt down. We are willing to serve Miss for the rest of our lives. We will not hesitate to go through water and tread on fire. Mayan casually tosses out a bottle of draft. There's no need to go through fire and water, just escort this dog emperor to the city gates for me. Because the lives of Gong Yanhai and a group of royal relatives are in their hands, the Jingqing country army outside has no choice but to retreat 10 miles away. It can be said that the entire Jingqing country's imperial palace is completely under Mayan's control. Gong Yanhai's complexion paled, staring fixedly at the young girl sitting lazily on the dragon throne. His eyes nearly split open. You rebel. My Jingqing country has millions of troops. Do you really think you can always be arrogant? I'm warning you, you'd better let us go immediately. Kowtow and admit your mistake, and I might even leave you with a whole corpse. Before Gong Yanhai could finish his words, Guanhu immediately stepped forward, grabbed him by the collar, and started beating him from both sides. Paw, 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 paw. After a dozen slaps, Gong Yanhai's face immediately swelled up like a pig's head. Chapter 600. With a wave of her hand, someone immediately drags out Qian Qing, who no longer looks like a human. The corner of Mu Yan's mouth hooks up into a cold arc. In this godly Dr. Qian's stomach, it's all your precious daughter Gong Qinshue's favorite golden silkworm Mother Gu, and there are nearly 100 of them. If anyone doesn't answer my questions properly, I don't mind taking one out of godly Dr. Qian's belly and stuffing it into your stomach. I believe that you won't dislike something that Gong Qinsue likes so much. Gong Yanhai widens his eyes in horror, looking at Qian Qing's bulging belly and his hands that are only skin and bones. His body begins to tremble uncontrollably. And Gong Qianye is already screaming, wanting to run away. No, no, I don't want to become like that. Spare me. I don't want to die. Boo-hoo. Guanhu immediately steps forward and slaps him a few more times. Grandson of a turtle, our miss didn't let you speak. You'd better keep your mouth shut for me, otherwise, don't blame me for being impolite. Mayan coldly sweeps her eyes over these people. In her previous life, she had also stayed in the imperial palace of Jingqing country for a period of time. Regarding the debauchery of the Gong family's royal family, she couldn't be any clearer. At that time, she still felt that Gong Qinsue was untainted by the mud. With this kind of family, she herself was noble and untainted, not the slightest bit affected. But she didn't know that Gong Qinsue was the one with the most poisonous heart. Speak, where is Gong Qinshue's real stronghold? How many people does she have? Mayan looks at Gong Yanhai below, and slowly says in a calm tone, speak clearly, and I can spare your dog lives. Gong Yanhai shrinks, opening his mouth to speak. But he hears Mayan continue, you'd better make sure that what you say is the truth. Otherwise, under the hypnosis of my zither, if you accidentally spit out the truth, I believe that you wouldn't be willing to bear that fate. Gong Yanhai remembers the frightening effect of her zither. How could he dare to lie again? No matter how important his daughter Gong Qinsue is, how can it be more important than his own life? Therefore, she immediately spilled the beans. She is in Litian City, which was given to her by me. It is adjacent to Huangyao country. There are 100,000 soldiers in there. You. Stop dreaming. That Litian city is easy to defend and hard to attack. Shui still has 100,000 soldiers and Xiantian experts. You better let us go. Mu Yan's fingers moved, and the sound of the zither flowed out. The person below seemed to be drunk in an instant. He swayed and fell asleep. She stood up from the throne and sneered, "Throw everyone in the palace out, then burn this filthy place down for me. As for these people, keep a close eye on them. This is a surprise that I want to give Gong Qinxue." "Yes, miss." In the dark night, a blazing fire illuminates the sky of Jingqing country's imperial capital. The people who were asleep all ran out and looked in the direction of the fire. They were so shocked that they could not come back to their senses. Isn't that the imperial palace? How did the palace catch fire? What the hell happened? Suddenly, someone in the crowd bellowed, "That's heaven's punishment." Was it the people of the Gong family who committed many unjust acts, and were finally punished by heaven? What do you mean by that? Chapter 601. The person who spoke suddenly burst into tears, and his face was full of resentment. "I am a citizen of Lotus Town. The people of the Gong family are insane. They actually used our people to make corpse soldiers. My poor child and my husband, what? Turning living people into corpse soldiers? Is this true or false? I can testify. I'm from Lotus Town. I can also testify. We can't tolerate the Gong family doing such a perverse thing, so we didn't hesitate to go to all the cities and tell everyone about their evil deeds. Such a tyrant being burned to death in the fire is their retribution. That's right, this is the Gong family's retribution. It's time for Jingqing country to change its emperor. The troops stationed outside the city are the Dog Emperor's minions. Let's go tear them apart and avenge our compatriots. Avenge our compatriots." That night, the entire Jingqing country's imperial capital, Anlong City, becomes a land of war. The army rebelled, the people rose up, and the imperial palace, which represents the pinnacle of power, fell into a sea of fire. It also starts from this moment. The Gong family's regime that has ruled Jingqing country for hundreds of years begins to collapse. And Gong Qinxue, who is far away in Litian City, is still unaware of all this. The people who caught Shen Jinglin still haven't returned. Gong Qinxue asks Duo Yen, who is kneeling on the ground, with a cold face. Duo Yen hangs her head in fear. "Forgive me, princess." This subordinate didn't expect that Bai Chen would be so cunning, directly hiding in the Wuwang Mountains. Moreover, even at night, he won't be attacked by strange beasts. But rest assured, princess, that Bai Chen is already an arrow at the end of its flight. Presumably, this subordinate will soon bring back Shen Jinglin and Bai Chen's bodies. Trash. Gong Qinxue coldly glances at her. "You can't even handle a heaven stage and an earth stage. This subordinate is incompetent." Gong Qinxue takes a deep breath. "Forget it, I don't want to wait anymore. That immortal spirit body must belong to me. Send an order to Qianqing, let him speed up the production of corpse soldiers. I want to attack the Ghost Wind Valley immediately. That slut Jun Mayan and the immortal spirit body that she gave birth to must belong to me." "Yes, princess." After Duo Yen agreed, he was a little hesitant, "But princess, the Ghost Wind Valley is famous for being a dead end. It's probably because there's poison smog inside. Even if an innate expert goes in, he'll be engulfed by the poison smog and die. Right now, the combat strength of the corpse soldiers is still too weak. If we attack rashly, I'm afraid." Don't worry." Gong Qinxue sneered, her face filled with a determined coldness. "I've already invited senior brother over. That mere poison smog can trap everyone. How can it trap senior brother Jianfeng? At that time, the Ghost Wind Valley will be ours, and that Jun Mayan and her immortal physique will become my, Gong Qinxue's, tonic." "Congratulations, Your Highness." Duo Yen said, "Once Princess consumes the elixir refined from the immortal spirit body, she will ascend to the immortal realm immediately. At that time, this subordinate, Gong Chinchua, glanced at him and said faintly, "Don't worry, as long as you're loyal to me, I guarantee that I won't treat you unfairly. At that time, I'll have senior brother Jian Feng leave you elixirs. Those elixirs will naturally help you to successfully refine your soul and body." "Many thanks, Princess." Duo Yen knelt down in excitement. "Even if this subordinate goes to the Shuzhen continent, I will still be loyal to the princess. Chapter 602. Princess, something bad has happened. Lianhua Town. Lianhua Town. Gong Chinchua frowned and said sternly, "What are you shouting for? What happened to Lianhua Town?" The man's face was pale. He swallowed his saliva and said in a trembling voice, "The people of Lianhua Town have all been released. Those corpse soldiers and Dr. Qian and the others have all been killed." "What did you say?" Gong Chinchua screamed and her face suddenly became ferocious. "What about my golden silkworm larvae? Where's Qian Qing?" The man shook his head. "Dr. Qian is missing. The corpses of those corpse soldiers have all been burned. The doctors and the mother larvae are also gone. Who did it? What is that trash Qian Qing doing? He has so many corpse soldiers and a primordial realm expert in his hands. How could he still mess things up for me?" The man was frightened by Gong Chinchua's twisted and ferocious expression and took a few steps back. Gong Chinchua's face turned green and white. She wondered who dared to behave atrociously in front of her. Suddenly, the shouts of thousands of people resounded in the sky of Litian City. It also clearly reached Gong Chinchua's ears. "Gong Chinchua, you're worse than pigs and dogs, cruel and unscrupulous, shameless, wicked, old woman who has committed all sorts of evil and is an accomplice to a villain. Hurry up and get the fuck out here to pay your respects to our young miss. Old woman, come out and pay your respects to our miss." The whole hall was dead silent. Duo Yen and the surrounding guards and maids all lowered their heads and didn't dare to look at Gong Chinchua's face. But the people outside seemed to be addicted to shouting. One ugly word after another kept coming out of his mouth. Seeing that Gong Chinchua still hadn't come out, they began to change their words. 10 years ago, at the state banquet, Gong Chinchua, you lowly maid, was jealous that the daughter of a noble family was prettier than you, so you found someone to rape that woman and disfigure her. You made her wish she was dead and finally threw herself into the river. Gong Chinchua, don't you think it's heartless? 8 years ago, you took a fancy to a mercenary group and wanted to recruit them for your own use. After failing to bribe them, you despicably poisoned their food and caused them to die tragically in the jungle. Gong Chinchua, tell me, are you a beast in human clothing? 6 years ago, you were jealous that your junior sister was more favored than you and had more talent than you, so you had someone frame her for stealing the sacred object of the sect. In the end, her cultivation was crippled and she was expelled from the Tiandao sect. Gong Chinchua, tell me, are you worse than a pig or a dog? Their curses pierced through the clouds. Gong Chinchua was not the only one who heard them. The people in Litian City and the army under Gong Chinchua's command also heard them. Her expression could no longer be described as ugly. The curses of nearly 1,000 people were like slaps that ruthlessly slapped her face in front of everyone. Just a few days ago, Gong Chinchua, in order to cultivate the zombie soldiers controlled by goo worms, you actually disregarded the lives of the people in Lianhua City and turned them into monsters that were neither human nor ghost. You even used the benevolence of doctors to lure them to Lianhua City to treat the people in the name of a plague. In reality, you planted a mother goo in their bodies and caused them to die after being sucked dry of their flesh and blood. Gong Chinchua, tell me, are you not a lunatic that everyone has the right to punish? Chapter 603. Who do you think you are, actually daring to slander this princess's clean reputation? Guards, capture them for me, tear them to pieces, skin them alive and pull out their tendons. There's a moment of silence in the air. Gong Qinshue abruptly comes back to her senses, only to discover that many soldiers on the city wall are staring at her in a daze. It seems that they've never seen the dignified and elegant princess reveal such a ferocious expression. And the common people of Litian City, attracted by the shouts, are even pointing at her. There's bewilderment in their eyes, as well as fear and disgust. Gong Qinshue comes to her senses in a split second. She's fallen into these treacherous people's evil scheme. In almost a split second, Gong Qinshue puts on a weeping expression. Tears are on her eyelashes, but they won't fall. She looks indescribably pitiful. She looks down at the row of black-clothed people below, bites her lip, and says in a loud voice, "Who are you people? Why are you slandering this princess's clean reputation? Could it be that you're the subordinates of that bandit that this princess annihilated last time? Although this princess was ruthless that day, it was also because you've done too much evil, and killed too many common people." Hearing Gong Qinshue's words, the faces of the surrounding soldiers and common people immediately change. Their original suspicions towards her lessen a lot. Instead, they're full of suspicion towards the group of black-clothed people shouting below. Just as Gong Qinshue is about to say something again, she sees the group of people below opening up a path in unison. A girl in snow-white clothes, holding the hand of a delicate and pretty boy, slowly walks forward. The moment she sees the girl and the boy, Gong Qinshue's pupils suddenly widen. As if it's an instinctive premonition, her gaze firmly falls on that beautiful fairy-like little boy. Without waiting for her to react, the girl's clear voice comes from afar, "Gong Qinshue, haven't you always wanted to find us mother and son? Now that we've delivered ourselves to your door, why don't you seem to welcome us?" Gong Qinshue's line of sight turns and falls on Mayan. When the girl's absolutely beautiful appearance comes into view, Gong Qinshue's pupils slightly contract, and the flames of jealousy and resentment burn fiercely. June. Mu. Yen. Gong Qinshue grits her teeth as she shouts this name. Loathing, fear, and boundless desire. She now knows that June Mayan is the woman who was pregnant with the immortal spirit fetus. As long as she eats her child, or even Mayan, she can immediately break through to the pre-celestial stage and ascend to the Shuzhen continent. This was the ending that Gong Qinshue wanted to see even in her dreams. As long as she could have this woman and her child, Gong Qinshue takes a deep breath, her face slowly revealing a warm and gentle smile. "Dr. June, I don't know what misunderstanding there is between us, but you seem to have some hostility towards me." However, Ben Gong has always admired the famous Enchantress of medicine very much. "If you don't mind, why don't you come to our Litian city and stay for a while? I'm sure your opinion of me will change." In the eyes of ordinary people in Yanwu continent, Gong Qinshue is a noble and kind princess, and also a talented practitioner with boundless prospects. To be invited by a princess in such a sincere manner, anyone else would have been overwhelmed by the favor. Mu Yen, however, chuckles in a low voice. She raised her head to look at Gong Qinshue and gently brushed away the strands of hair that were floating at the side of her temple. Only then did she unhurriedly say, "Really? Your Highness, do you really not have any hostility towards me?" Chapter 604. Ben Gong has always admired talented people, especially benevolent and virtuous doctors. As long as you are willing to stay in Litian City for a while, Ben Gong can give you a lot of rare herbs that you absolutely can't find outside, and I can even let Brother Jianfeng give you a pointer or two. Throwing out such a bait, would she still be afraid that Mayan wouldn't be tempted? However, Mayan's next sentence makes her almost unable to maintain her hypocritical face. Even if, at that time in the fog forest, the sacred beast egg that Princess Chinchua wanted by every means possible was eaten by my spirit pet. Saying that, she raises her hand and grabs a chubby rabbit from behind, shaking it under Gong Chinchua's eyes. This beast! Gong Chinchua screams, but immediately realizes that something is wrong. She reluctantly smiles and says, Dr. June must be joking, everyone can fight over the sacred beast egg. Before Gong Chinchua could finish speaking, Mayan's calm and unruffled voice interrupts her. Even if your Jin Hong men in Qi Yen country was destroyed by me, wouldn't your Royal Highness be angry? Gong Chinchua's face has already begun to distort. Her hands are tightly clenched into fists, her nails piercing into her flesh, and she dryly laughs. Dr. June, what are you talking about? Why can't Ben Gong understand? What does Jin Hong men have to do with Ben Gong? Is that so? It doesn't matter, that's really great. The princess is really magnanimous. Mayan smiles even more happily, so, even if I later killed Ghost City's Ghost King Lu Se, destroyed Xian Medical Pavilion, and killed all the corpse soldiers in Lianhua town. Presumably, your Royal Highness wouldn't mind. Slut. Hearing this, Gong Chinchua couldn't bear it anymore, and she lets out a hysterical roar. Sure enough, it's you, slut, who ruined all my good things. Mayan sneers, Gong Chinchua, you're finally not putting on an act. You should know that if you keep acting like this, I'm going to vomit from disgust. Do you really think that I still don't know who the person who wanted to dig out the child in my belly was? Gong Chinchua's chest violently heaves up and down, glaring at Mayan. Then, she laughed softly. So, you already know. In that case, this Empress doesn't need to be polite with you anymore. June Mayan, you escaped 5 years ago, but you and your child are destined to be stepping stones for Ben Gong's advancement. What's more? Her gaze swept over and landed on Xiao Bao, and the smile on her face became more and more arrogant. Compared to 5 years ago when he was just a newborn, your son is much more nourishing now. This Empress still has to thank you for helping this Empress raise it for 5 years and letting me eat it properly. Oh, that's right, there's also that sacred beast egg. Since it was eaten by your spiritual pet, I only need to skin your spiritual pet and dig out the sacred beast egg. In any case, this sacred beast egg was originally dug out from the stomach of another foolish woman. The light in Mu Yan's eyes suddenly turns cold, and the killing intent on her body can no longer be concealed. The hatred of her past life and this life surged to the extreme at this moment, making her almost unable to control herself from rushing up and tearing Gong Chinchua to pieces. There was another person who was even faster than her, and her hatred was even deeper. A white light flashed, and Bai Chen soared up to the sky, fiercely attacking Gong Chinchua. However, Gong Chinchua still hasn't moved. Chapter 605. That was Duo Yen who was at the peak of the Xiantian realm. At the same time, countless men in black rushed out, cutting off Bai Chen's escape route. Bai Chen spat out a mouthful of blood as he unleashed the pressure of a peak Xiantian expert. But he didn't seem to feel it at all, and only glared fiercely at Gong Chinchua. Gong Chinchua, sit on and you have no enmity, but for the sake of a spiritual beast egg, you actually cut open her stomach while she was still alive, and crushed her dantian. Are you even human? Gong Chinchua looked at him disdainfully. Oh, so you're here to avenge that stupid woman. Hee, who does that idiot Lin Sidong think she is? She's just a useless woman, yet she dares to snatch the sacred beast egg from this consort. If she wanted to blame someone, she could only blame herself for overestimating herself. If she had obediently given the sacred beast egg to this queen might have spared her life. In the end, she said that she wanted to give it to senior marshal brother, and she would rather die than hand over the sacred beast egg. For daring to snatch something from this empress, she deserves it. In the end, She said she wanted to give it to senior brother. Give it to senior brother. Bai Yichen's eyes reddened, and hot tears rolled down his cheeks. Sidong, that silly girl, why couldn't she understand? Compared to the sacred beast egg, she was 1,000 times more important to him. Why? Why didn't he follow that silly lass? Why didn't he protect his Sidong, Gong Qinxue? I'll kill you. Bai Yichen let out a loud roar as he soared into the sky against Duo Yan's powerful pressure. The wind howled, and the long sword pointed straight at Gong Qinxue. Duo Yan snorted coldly. The steel blade in his hand made a buzzing sound, and a cold light shot out in all directions as it slashed towards Bai Yichen. This slash contained all the pressure of a peak-inborn expert. If it really hit, Bai Yichen would definitely be cut in half. However, just as the blade light was about to touch Bai Yichen, the sound of the zither rang out. A ray of light flashed and instantly wrapped around Bai Yichen's waist, pulling him back. Duo Yan's blade slashed through the air and he looked down fearfully. The one who made the move was Jun Mayan, a 19-year-old girl, much younger than Gong Qinxue. However, when Bai Yichen was swept away just now, it had forcibly blocked the momentum of his blade. This Jun Mayan, just how high is her cultivation? Could it be that he had already reached the innate realm at such a young age? Bai Yichen, calm down. Mu Yan looks at Bai Yichen who is kneeling in front of her, her voice indescribably cold and indifferent. I hate Gong Qinxue more than you do, but being impulsive will not allow you to take revenge. It will only make all of your efforts fall short of success. The Shen father, Dr. Song, and Chen Qingfeng are all still in Gong Qinxue's hands. Even in her dreams, Mayan yearns for revenge. However, her hatred would never be built on the basis of sacrificing the important people around her. Bai Yichen lowered his head guiltily and said in a trembling voice, I'm sorry, I almost ruined everything. Uncle Rabbit Lantern. Xiao Bao suddenly reached out and pulled Bai Yichen up. Don't be sad. Bad women will definitely get what they deserve. Bai Yichen looked at Xiao Bao's serious little face, and a faint smile appeared on his pale face. Soon after, his expression became extremely calm, and he slowly walked behind Mu Yan. Gong Qinxue smiles coldly, her malicious eyes staring at Mu Yan, then she lightly waves her hand. In a split second, hundreds of black-robed men leaped onto the city wall. Each of these black-clothed men had a cultivation base of heaven rank and above. Chapter 606. Under the thousands of soldiers and horses, Mu Yan and the hundreds of people around her were like a small boat in the ocean, easily capsized by the raging waves. Seeing this scene, Gong Qinxue bursts into laughter. Jun Mayan, in Ben Gong's eyes, you are just an ant. If Ben Gong wants to pinch you to death, then Ben Gong will pinch you to death. If Ben Gong wants to eat your child, then Ben Gong will eat your child. Right now, I'm high and mighty, while you're as low as dust. What qualifications do you have to talk to me? Mu Yan raises the corner of her mouth and is about to speak. Ru Yan's face is cold as she suddenly steps forward. Miss, please wait a moment. Isn't it too insulting for you to raise your head and talk to a beast like Gong Qinxue? Miss, please give this subordinate a quarter of an hour. Mayan stares blankly, unable to react. Ru Yan waved her hand. Over 100 soldiers of the Heavenly Secret Battalion walked out. Under everyone's dumbfounded gazes, these secret division members actually used materials from the ground to build a tall observation tower in just 15 minutes. The lookout tower was simple and crude, and only a dozen people could stand on it. However, it was just a little higher than the city wall that Gong Qinxue was standing on. Ru Yan triumphantly shoots a glance at the ashen-faced Gong Qinxue, and cupping her hands towards Mayan, she says, I ask Miss to go to a higher place. Let's see how that vicious woman is going to look down on you. Each and every one of the people of the Tianji unit also feels honored. They raise their necks and proudly look at the people of the ink camp, saying in a loud voice, "Miss and Little Master, please ascend the platform." Mu Yan is almost amused by this group of subordinates. It was hard for them to be able to cause trouble for Gong Qinxue in such a place at such a time. But it had to be said that looking at Gong Qinxue's unsightly expression, her mood was very good. With a light leap, Mu Yan flew up to the platform with Xiao Bao in her arms. Almost at the same time, Yan Haotian, Feng Haitang, Bai Chen, and Ru Yan also led some people and jumped up. Gong Qinxue coldly looked at Mayan and sneered, "Jun Mayan, do you think that by building a high platform, you can confront Ben Gong? With just a few hundred of you. Don't tell me you're daydreaming." Mu Yan raises her eyes, unhurriedly saying, "Gong Qinxue, you really don't need to disguise yourself anymore. In front of your people, you don't mind exposing your true face at all." Gong Qinxue's face darkened even more as she looked down at the edge of the city wall. Her actions just now had indeed caused the commoners to look at her suspiciously. So what if they have doubts? They're just a bunch of stupid commoners. With just a few casual words, he would be deceived. Gong Qinxue straightens her expression, and with an awe-inspiring righteous expression, she says in a clear voice, "Citizens of Litian City, this Jun Mayan is a spy sent by the Ghost City and Qi Yan country to our Jingqing country. She intends to disturb our Jingqing country's imperial court. Therefore, I must exterminate them today. Could it be that you would rather believe an outsider than me, Gong Qinxue?" After all, Gong Qinxue was the princess of Jingqing country. In Jingqing country, especially in Litian City, her power and influence wasn't something ordinary people could compare with. The words that the ink camp people just shouted, and the conversation between Gong Qinxue and Jun Mayan, really made the common people have doubts. But it's only suspicion. Compared to a stranger like Jun Mayan, they certainly trust Gong Qinxue more. Chapter 607. Mayan clicks her tongue and sighs, "I can't help but admire the princess's spirit of pretending to be a white lotus. Of course, I know that the people of Litian City won't believe me, but I don't know if they believe me or not. What about the people of Lotus Town?" As soon as her voice falls, Feng Haitang immediately whistles. The next moment, the people of the Everlasting Camp immediately surround and protect several people of Lotus Town. Each of these people is the most virtuous and respected elder of Lotus Town, and one of them is even the city lord. Lotus Town and Litian City both belong to Jingqing country, so some people have seen the city lord of Lotus Town. Are they really the people of Lotus Town? How could they appear here? The city lord of Lotus Town raises his head and glares fiercely at Gong Qinxue. After a long while, he chokes with sobs, "Gong Qinxue, how can you be so ruthless, so sinister? We are obviously all your people, but you actually use us as containers to raise goo, puppets, and so cruelly slaughter the people. Aren't you afraid of being struck by lightning?" All the people of Litian City. Another citizen of Lotus Town shouts, "We saw it with our own eyes. The people around us and our relatives were killed by Qian Qing, who was sent by this poisonous woman. We watched helplessly as our loved ones turned into a monster that was neither human nor ghost, yet we were powerless to do anything about it. Don't believe this venomous woman, otherwise, what happened to us today will be your tomorrow. Gong Qinxue, a venomous woman like you is simply not worthy to be our princess, and even less worthy to rule Jingqing country. You will definitely suffer retribution." If the words of Mayan and the people of the ink camp just now only made the people of Litian City suspicious, at this moment, they look at Gong Qinxue with astonishment and vigilance. Because these words weren't said by an outsider like Mayan, but by the people of Lotus Town, their compatriots. Everyone speaks of these things in such a vivid manner, could it really be false? Gong Chenchue's face distorts in anger. Jun Mayan, you are really vicious, you actually colluded with the people of Lotus Town to frame Ben Gong. Frame you? Mu Yan revealed a mocking smile. Your Highness, don't tell me that you don't know this Qian Qing. As he spoke, someone immediately dragged Qian Qing, who was as thin as a match and had a bulging belly, onto the stage. Seeing Qian Qing's bulging belly, Gong Chenchue's nostrils shrank. She almost immediately guessed what was inside Qian Qing's stomach. That was the larva of the golden silkworm Mother Gu. This was the only hope she had left to nurture corpse soldiers. At this time, Qian Qing is already living a life worse than death. He raises his skull-like face and looks at Mayan with a pleading look, only begging her to give him a quick death. The pain of having so many Mother Gu gnawing away at his flesh and blood was indescribable. That was truly the torture of the 18 levels of purgatory. Mu Yan sneered at him. Miracle Dr. Qian, when you placed the goo worm into someone else's body, did you ever think that you would have such a day? Woo! Woo woo woo. Qian Qing's tongue was cut off and she couldn't speak, so she could only beg for mercy with tears and snot all over her face. You want to die? Qian Qing nodded desperately, uttering "ah" sounds. Chapter 608. Her line of sight turns and falls on Gong Chenchue's face. I wonder if Her Highness the Princess would be reluctant to part with these Mother Gu dead. Gong Chenchue's complexion alternates between green and white, simply wishing she could tear Jun Mayan apart. Of course she wants to take back the Mother Gu of the golden silkworm Gu, that's the only larva she has left. However, the common people of Litian City are watching. If she does this, the reputation that she has accumulated and her prestige in Jingqing country will be completely destroyed. Gong Chenchue opens her mouth, wanting to speak. She hears Mayan sneer. It seems that Her Highness the Princess is merciful, allowing you to die. Then, Haotian, burn everything down for me along with the goo. You dare. Gong Chenchue finally couldn't bear it and roars. All the gentleness and kindness on her face has disappeared without a trace. Only a cold cruelty remains. Jun Mayan, that's my Mother Gu, you dare to destroy my Mother Gu. Whoosh. As soon as Gong Chenchue says this, the common people of Litian City boil up in a split second. It's actually true. Her Highness the Princess is really using the flesh and blood of the common people to raise Gu. How could a woman with such a heart of snakes and scorpions be worthy of being our princess? Gong Chenchue coldly glances at the common people who are speaking, her face filled with madness and ruthlessness. You lowly commoners, it's your honor to be a stepping stone on my road to success. Duo Yen, go and take back the golden silkworm Gu for me. There aren't enough people in Lotus City, so I'll use these lowly commoners of Litian City to raise my golden silkworm Gu. As for these lowly commoners, if anyone dares to act rashly, kill them without mercy. At this moment, the dagger is revealed. All of Gong Chenchue's ugly and ruthless true colors have been exposed. Just as the common people of Litian City are about to riot, more than half of them are injured by the rushing black-clothed men and soldiers. In their hearts, they hate this once revered princess to the extreme, but there's nothing they can do. Gong Chenchue's gaze has already fallen on the opposite tower. Jun Mayan, do you think that you can use these insignificant lowly commoners to kidnap me and make me let you go? What a joke. You're just a bunch of useless trash. After today, I'll naturally make sure that they won't be able to say a single word. The same goes for all of you. Seeing that your medical skills are quite excellent, I'll let your body incubate my final golden silkworm Gu. As he spoke, Duo Yan's figure had already leaped high into the air. Like a bolt of lightning, he charged towards the tall watchtower. In a split second, the wind howled and the pressure of an inborn expert enveloped everyone on the pagoda. Ru Yen, Old Tao, and the others, who had low cultivations, turned pale. Their bodies swayed, as if they could not hold on any longer. On the city wall, Gong Qinxue revealed a proud expression. She was waiting for Duo Yen to slaughter everyone on this tower. She's waiting for Jun Mayan to kneel in front of her, crying and begging for mercy, but she can only watch helplessly as her own son is refined into an elixir and eaten by herself. Just as Duo Yan's hand was about to grab Qian Qing. Suddenly, there was a hum, and the sound of strings moving rang out. Duo Yan suddenly felt a burning pain on the back of his hand. The next moment, his eyes widened in shock. He saw that on Qian Qing's body, a dark blue flame had unexpectedly sprang up, swallowing his whole person. Qian Qing revealed an expression of relief. But the goo in his abdomen began to rush left and right, issuing a unique, ear-piercing cry. Chapter 609. However, it's still too late. The speed at which the flames burned was extremely fast. Almost in the blink of an eye, Qian Qing is burned to ashes. The golden silkworm mother goo in his stomach also didn't escape. The anger in Duo Yan's eyes is almost gushing out. With a wave of the long sword in his hand, the sword that can split mountains and split stones is about to completely cut down this temporarily built observation tower. However, his sword hasn't been swung down yet. Suddenly, he hears a melodious sound of a zither. Immediately after, there's a sharp pain in his chest. Puff puff puff. That's the sound of metal piercing flesh. Duo Yan can feel that all the internal force and vitality in his body are quickly flowing away with this piercing sound. He lowers his head in disbelief. What he sees are the 7 zither strings that have run through his body. One of them has directly pierced his heart. The zither strings are slowly stained with his blood, and then emit a colorful light. It's very beautiful, but it's like the light of the Grim Reaper's scythe. Duo Yan stiffly raises his head and looks in Mayan's direction. Not far away, the beautiful girl smiles at him. Her smile is charming and languid, but with a holiness that can't be profaned. It's like a high and mighty fairy of the 9th heaven, looking at an insignificant ant with pity and ridicule. Buzz! With a sound, the girl's slender fingers move in the air. In a split second, the 7 zither strings come out and return to the girl's body, transforming into 7 swords of different colors, gently circling around. Qijue's Sword Spirit, the top skill of the Shin musician level 3. A peak pre-celestial expert is killed in one blow. Bang! Duo Yan's body falls from the high platform and heavily falls on the yellow sand, raising a cloud of dust. After a moment of silence, the Nether Flame Army lets out a warm cheer. On the city wall, everyone is deathly pale. Gong Qinxue's eyes widen in disbelief, almost unable to believe what's happening in front of her. That's Duo Yan Ah. The most capable assistant with the highest cultivation by her side. He has been at the peak of the pre-celestial for decades, and he's only a step away from forging his body and refining his soul. But Duo Yan is dead. Moreover, he died in the hands of a woman younger than herself, Mayan. How is this possible? If that's the case, just how high is Jun Mayan's cultivation? Gong Qinxue grits her teeth, the jealousy and unwillingness in her heart almost engulfs her whole soul. She should be the #1 genius of Yanwu continent. Why did this slut Mayan appear? To ruin her good deed, to rob her reputation. Why couldn't that slut, Jun Mayan, obediently let her dig out the child in her belly 5 years ago, and let her refine it into an elixir to eat? Otherwise, she would be the one at the pinnacle of the innate realm. No. Even if there is no golden silkworm. That immortal spiritual body in Mayan, she absolutely must obtain them. As long as she could take the elixir refined by the immortal physique, she would be able to refine her soul and body. What could mere corpse soldiers do to her? Gong Qinchue suddenly took a step forward and roared, "Soldiers of Jingqing country, listen to my order. Everyone around the city wall, except for Jun Mayan and her son, kill them all without mercy. Whoever captures Jun Mayan and her lowly spawn alive, Ben Gong will bestow upon him the title of Prince Regent, General Wei Yuan. Henceforth, in Jingqing country, he would be below one person and above 10,000 people." Hearing Gong Qinchue's order. Chapter 610. Gong Qinchue's actions just now really hurt the hearts of the people of Jingqing country. Furthermore, many of these soldiers were recruited from Litian City. But the other half, after hearing Gong Qinchue's shout, their eyes lit up, and they immediately readied themselves for action. A moment later, he rushed toward the observation deck. He watches as tens of thousands of soldiers surround Jun Mayan and the others as well as the people from the Yin camp. Gong Qinchue's ugly face finally revealed a carefree expression. So what if Jun Mayan's cultivation is higher? 2 fists are no match for 4 hands. She could fight 10 of them, but could she fight 100 or 1,000 of them? Surrounded by thousands of soldiers, these hundreds of people were like ants that could be squashed to death at any time. Seeing this scene, Mu Yen smiled. He casually changed his posture and sat cross-legged. His fingers lightly moved on the strings, producing a pleasant sound. She raised her face and asked faintly, "Are you guys ready?" "Of course." Ru Yen, Yen Haotian, and Feng Haitang all kneel before Mayan, their faces brimming with eagerness and excitement. Ru Yan's eyes shine brightly as she says, "My Netherflame Army's 3 camps, Ink Camp, Heavenly Secret Camp, and Longevity Camp, have been operating for so long, and have consumed so many of Miss Precious elixirs and drafts, all for this day." This was the day when the Netherflame Army truly made their appearance. It was also an unforgettable day for the people of the world to remember the Netherflame Army from afar. Mu Yan looks at the excitement and fighting spirit on the faces of the 3, and the corner of her mouth hooks up into a shallow smile. "Go, it's time to let Gong Qinchue know how many gifts I've prepared for her." Ru Yan and the other 2 received the order and each walked towards 3 different directions of the lookout tower. Then, they used their fingers to press their lips together and let out different whistles. On the city wall, Gong Qinchue is about to order Jing Chang's army to attack. Suddenly, the ground rumbled and shook. The rumbling of horse hooves, shouts, and footsteps came from all directions. Gong Qinchue looked over in shock. From the east, west, and south, there was a huge group of people galloping over. After a short period of a few tens of breaths, the army had stopped outside Heaven Departing City. The number of troops in this group isn't actually large, but they've spread out in a large circle, faintly encircling Jing Chang's army. Soon, a man in the east jumped off his horse and knelt on the ground. Black Camp's Guan Hu, leading 2,600 elite cavalry, reporting to Miss and Commander Yen. In the south, a slender woman jumped off her horse and knelt on the ground. Heavenly Secret Battalion's Fang Jingya, leading 1,700 people, reporting to Miss and Commander Rian. In the west, a hale and hearty old man in his 50s jumped off his horse and knelt on the ground. Longevity Camp's Old Tao, leading 1,900 men, reporting to Young Mistress and Commander Feng. As soon as the 3 finished their reports, the thousands of soldiers behind them roared in unison. "The Netherflame Army is invincible. Long live the young miss, long live the young master." Gong Qinchue stared fixedly at the scene in front of her. Listening to the shouts of the people below, her eyeballs almost popped out. How was this possible? Jun Mayan is a woman with no power, no influence, no background. How could she gather such a powerful army? The cultivation of every soldier here had even reached the Xian grade. They're even more powerful than her Jing Chang's army. Jun Mayan, on what basis does she have? But very quickly, Gong Qinshue calms down. Because no matter how powerful this army is, it's still less than 10,000. Chapter 6:11. However, if she wanted to kill these people in a short period of time, her army would definitely suffer heavy losses. But if she captures Mayan alive, these people might be of use to her. Gong Qinshue rolled her eyes, a sinister light flashing in her eyes. She raised her hand and shouted, "Wait!" Hearing Gong Qinshue's order, Jing Cheng's army immediately stops. "Jun Mayan, do you really want to go against me?" Gong Qinshue sneered, "Don't forget, your foster father is still in my hands. Or are you saying that you don't even care about your adoptive father's life?" While speaking, a black-clothed man immediately carries the disheveled and haggard Shen father, Shinicheng, to the top of the city wall. Gong Qinshue slowly walked to Shinicheng's side and smiled. "Master Shen, do you see that? That's your adopted daughter. She overestimated herself and wanted to go against me, but I am magnanimous and can give her a chance. As long as you can convince her to surrender to Ben Gong will naturally give everyone in the Qin family a way out. Otherwise, just wait for Ben Gong to lead an army to flatten your Qin family and make it so that your Qin family will never have any descendants." Hearing this, the Shen father raises his eyelids, which are almost glued together by blood, and looks towards Gong Qinshue. Just when Gong Qinshue still wanted to say something, she suddenly spat on Gong Qinshue. "Stop dreaming. My Qin family's people would rather die than surrender." "Yen Yen." Shen father lifts his head and looks at Mayan on the observation platform. He says in a hoarse voice, "Yen Yen, don't worry about Daddy. Daddy is already old, his death is not to be regretted. You must never yield to this vicious woman." Piak. He ruthlessly slaps the Shen father's face, causing one side of his face to quickly swell up, and fresh blood overflows from the corner of the Shen father's mouth. "Refusing a toast only to drink a forfeit? Then don't blame me for being impolite." Gong Qinshue said in a cold voice, "Men, chop off his hands and feet for me." "Gong Qinshue, you dare." On the opposite observation deck, Mayan walked step by step to the edge, coldly watching this side. The pressure of a peak innate expert was suddenly released. Gong Qinshue felt as if her blood had frozen. The man in black beside her was shivering, and his face was pale. For a moment, he couldn't move a single step. Gong Qinshue revealed an aghast and jealous expression, hurriedly taking out a medicinal pill and swallowing it. Then he looks at Mayan and says darkly, "Jun Mayan, as you can see, your foster father is now in my hands. Not only him, but also those old undying doctors. Their life and death are all under my control. If you know what's good for you, you'd better surrender obediently. Otherwise, I'll chop off your adoptive father's arms and legs and slice off his flesh piece by piece." The sword in Gong Qinshue's hand is firmly pressed against the Shen father's neck. Then he looks at Mayan with a sneer. However, Jun Mayan's panic-stricken, angry, shocked, and pained appearance didn't appear. Her expression was frighteningly cold, and there was not a trace of emotion on her beautiful face. "Gong Qinshue, you've given me such a big gift. If I don't reciprocate, wouldn't it be a pity?" Gong Qinshue stares blankly. "Jun Mayan, what are you saying? Could it be that he has lost his mind?" Mayan claps her hands together and lightly claps them. Soon, someone from the Ink camp escorts a group of people up. These people's appearance is really similar to the Shen fathers. Each and every one of them is disheveled and dirty, extremely haggard. Chapter 6:12. Seeing these people appear, Gong Qinshue simply couldn't believe her eyes. "Imperial father, imperial mother, imperial brother. Why are you here?" Quickly save us. When Gong Yanhai saw Gong Qinshue, he immediately cried and shouted with a face full of snot and tears. The other children of Jingqing country's royal family are also wailing like ghosts and howling like wolves. They're begging Gong Qinshue not to go against Mayan again, and quickly save them. Gong Qinshue looks at Mayan in shock. You slut, what did you do? His voice suddenly became louder, filled with endless fear and disbelief. Mu Yan smiled slightly, her expression cold and mocking. Nothing much, it's just that, Your Highness, don't you like to plunder other people's houses? So, to return the favor, I also went to the princess's house to make a copy. Your Highness, your family members are all here now. As for that magnificent Jingqing country's imperial palace, I'm afraid it's already turned into a pile of scorched earth. No. This is impossible. Gong Qinshue roars hysterically, her expression like a madman. That is my Jingqing country's imperial palace. There are 12 pre-celestial powerhouses inside, and thousands of troops and horses guarding inside and outside the city. How could you possibly capture my imperial father and imperial mother? How could you possibly burn the imperial palace? Jingqing country's imperial palace, that magnificent palace, is the place that belongs to her in the future. One day, she will ascend the throne as empress there and unify the Yanwu continent. How could it be burned down by that slut Jun Mayan? Mayan's cold eyes look at the almost insane Gong Qinshue. Gong Qinshue, didn't you say that you have a lot of hostages in your hands that can threaten me? In that case, let's see who has more hostages and who has more chips. She lightly plucked the zither strings. The next moment, the people from the Ink camp immediately take a step forward and grab all the members of Jingqing country's royal family. 10 slaps landed on the faces of Gong Yanhai and the others. Paw, 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 paw. These 10 slaps could be said to be merciless. In an instant, the faces of Gong Yanhai and the others swelled like pig heads. Some of them even had their teeth knocked out. His ears were filled with the painful wails of the Gong family. Mu Yan's face is cold and solemn. From now on, the pain you inflicted on my father and other friends, I will return it to your family tenfold, 100-fold. If you slap my father once, I'll return 10 slaps to every member of your Gong family. If you chop off one of my father's hands, I'll chop off all the limbs of your Gong family. If you cut off a piece of my father's flesh, I will cut off the flesh of your parents piece by piece. The afternoon sun shone on the girl's beautiful face. However, even though it was clearly such a bright sunlight, it did not give off a trace of warmth. All that was left was cold hatred and determination. The hatred between her and Gong Qinshue in her past life and this life. The number was innumerable, and the retribution was endless. Today was the day of the end. Gong Qinshue, if you don't believe me, you can give it a try. There was a dead silence in the hall. The blades of the Ink camp's people are pressed against the necks of Gong Yanhai and the others, revealing a malevolent smile. Dog Emperor, tell me, will your precious daughter save you? I can't wait to cut off your hands and feet. The cold blade was pressed against his shoulder, cutting through his clothes and flesh. Chapter 613. Still not releasing Jun Mayan's father. As the Emperor of Jingqing country, we order you to release him immediately. On Lydian City's side, everyone's eyes are on Gong Qinshue. Especially the soldiers of Jingqing country. Princess. Hurry and save them, that's the Emperor and Empress. Yes, Princess. The other side will do what they say, we can't ignore His Majesty's life. Gong Qinshue grits her teeth, her eyes spitting fire as she looks at Mayan, as if she can't wait to rush over and tear her apart. Jun Mayan, you despicable slut, you actually used Bengong's parents to threaten Bengong? Who is the slut scolding? Ru Yen sneers. The princess seems to have turned her head and forgotten who the hostage was. What's more, isn't the conditions given by our miss very reasonable? Everyone has hostages in their hands, release them together. It's very fair, no one will suffer a loss. Yes, yes. Very fair. Shua. Gong Qinshue, what are you still doing? Gong Yanhai shouts, quickly order for them to be released. Gong Qinshue's eyes fall on Gong Yanhai, Gong Qinye, and the others. Suddenly, the anger on her face fades little by little, slowly turning into a cold ruthlessness. What's the use of these wastes? As her parents and brothers, not only can they not help her, they will only hold her back. That's right, what's the big deal if these wastes die? Isn't Jingqing country still hers? She can even ascend the throne more smoothly, because she's the only one left in the royal family of Jingqing country. Ha, ha ha ha. Jun Mayan, that slut, thinks that she can threaten her. She doesn't know that she's paving the stepping stone for her. Bring the bow and arrows. Gong Qinshue suddenly shouts and reaches behind her. Soon, a black-clothed man hands over the bow and arrows. She knocked the arrow and pointed it at Gong Yanhai and the others. Gong Yanhai's eyes widen. Gong Qinshue, you evil creature, what are you doing? No way. Ru Yen cried out in alarm. Gong Qinshue has actually become deranged to this extent, those are her parents and relatives. Even Yan Haotian, who has always been indifferent, also shows a shocked expression. Only Mu Yan wasn't surprised in the slightest. Instead, the corners of her mouth curled up to reveal a wisp of dense ridicule. Yes. She should have known. Gong Qinshue, this deranged woman, would not have the slightest bit of conscience. He had thought that she would at least care about his parents' lives. But he didn't expect her to be vicious to such an extent. For the sake of his own future, he would rather kill his own parents with his own hands. Imperial father, imperial mother. Gong Qinshue is unhurried, her voice doesn't have a trace of the gentle and virtuous gentleness that she pretends to have in the past, leaving only cruelty and heartlessness. It's not that your daughter doesn't want to save you, but that slut Jun Mayan is too cunning. Your daughter absolutely cannot let them succeed. Don't worry, after you die, your daughter will definitely avenge you. Swish. Before he could finish his words, an arrow pierced through the air. Without waiting for the people of the Ink camp to react, it has already pierced through the chest of the Empress of Jingqing country. Her almond-shaped eyes were wide open as she stared at her daughter in disbelief. After a long time, she collapsed unwillingly. He breathed his last. Swish. 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 The second, third, and fourth arrows were released one after another. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.